May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in the sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, to be great praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message of mine. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Hosayana Kitaguya, Ohio, I see you, Manut, Guam, Kumsa, Samida, Aloha, Cha, Onson, Privet, Guten Tag, Abarigani, Aquaba, Madasa, Etesen, Jambo, Bimini Kofi, the Franco Katana, the Wewe, Bokuto, Bokutab, greetings, grand rising salutations, Bakwata, Barakala Chamikava, and I could I create the service of Christ, Tida, at this night, at Yahara just Tida, at Bar Akbat, Yahara at Chamiyam, Shalom and peace, Shalom et Shalom et Baruch, Shalom et Baruch, Shalom at Barak, peace and blessings. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, for being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Appreciate you for being on with us one more again today. Thank you for spending some time with us as we continue to get deeper and deeper into our word, the word of the Most High, and what He has for us. And we're getting back into our Exodus series that we had to take an Exodus from, unfortunately, for a brief moment in time, but we're coming back to it. We'll be doing this for about a week. As we said yesterday, at the end of the week, I guess on Saturday. So not for quite a week, but for this working week, maybe for some of us. On Saturday, we're gonna have to cut this. We're gonna have to cut this for about another week and do some teaching. We'll be focused in mainly on Pentecost and making sure that everybody's aware of what goes on for Pentecost, what we're supposed to do, make sure that we're all on accord, and we'll speak some things out. However, I'm excited about today. Today's going to go a little different than what I thought we were going to get back into. We will still be going through Exodus line upon line, and precept upon precept, right? But what I'm actually very interested about in today, when we go through, is the fact that in a lot of different things that we're going to talk about and go through, there are things that are still going on today, as we've been talking about, with who the Israelite actually is, who this was written to, Exodus was written to in its origins, and therefore who it still affects. And when we even come out of Revelation, we just finished doing a Revelation series recently, so we're excited about that. So we'll be on for live, obviously, right now. As long as everything's fine, we should be on later this evening to get back into our graft-in sessions. Those of you who are coming on the trip, there still is room for, about 2-3 groups, 2-3 either persons or groups, depending on how you want to do that for one person or 2 or more. However, there's room for about 2 or 3 more if you still like to be able to come. We could work out whatever we need to work out on the back end, or even, as you're coming in, we could let it be known. But we're appreciative, we're thankful, we're grateful, we're excited, and you guys who are coming physically should be getting address and some other things today. Also, too, let's see. We want to thank everybody for coming over from Early Rising Bible Study Session. Minister Ismail Ray gave us an excellent word, an excellent message as always. It was great to see you back on, sis. I think I saw you at the corner of my eye come on. I'm here on the live session, so we're grateful for that. It's recorded as always if you missed it. If you want more information on how you can join us for that and other things we do, not just on the live sessions, but even in other things virtually and even other things physically. If you're interested in doing that and helping us to grow, not because for us it's not just virtual, it's reality. We'd love to have you guys join us for more. Feel free to reach out to us in numbers or different emails, different things you see in either descriptions of videos later on in recordings, or even if you see with our link tree, feel free to text us, email us, call, whatever the case might be. We'll do our best to get back to you ASAP. But thank you all for being on. I appreciate you. So I'm taking my time with today. I do have a chair ready if I need to rest and calm down some. I am prepared to sit down, so I'm not going past anything. If I feel like I'm going a little too much, and I apologize for being a bad example. I didn't know that basically most plastic nowadays, they changed it to where most plastic is made out of crude oil now. So I'm definitely being a bad example today. But I need to drink as much water as I can. So, depending on how much my body allows me to drink, I'm going to be drinking. So my apologies if it looks kind of rough and kind of weird to see me popping up here, even sometimes maybe spilling a little water. But I need it in my healing. I need it in my life, period. And so it just is what it is. You're going to have to see me today drinking out of this, unfortunately. But thank you for being on. Appreciate you. And so we're going to keep things moving. We're going to get ready to say our Bible pledge in just a little bit. And also, too, don't forget those of you who are coming to Detroit physically as well, or, coming to Pentecost period, but coming to Detroit, coming to Detroit, we will try to make sure we keep putting the information out, some of it on live sessions, but a lot of it in some meetings we're going to start having on Zoom. So just look for that information to pop up the same way it does in our email and everything. If you hear me mention something, just look there for the link, and you should be able to join us because that's going to be happening May 30th. So we'll be meeting up May 21st and the 24th for a Memorial Day meetup, and then might be the last Memorial Day meetup for a little bit. So I'm glad we're going to do this. And then May 30th, we'll go ahead and get ready to meet up at Pentecost. Come on. All right, so we're going to say shalom to everybody, and then let's go ahead and get ready to get started. If you can, rise your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you were able to reverence the word of Yahweh. Thank you for doing so in advance. Thank you so much for being on with us once again. We appreciate you, and thank you for those that support us in so many different ways, especially in this season where a lot of travel, a lot of things going on. Gas prices are costing, 2 arms and 2 legs, and a couple extra toes if you've been growing. So I thank y'all for helping us out and helping out what we do. Also, too, my apologies. There is, and I know we do this from time to time. We haven't really done this like big time. There is an emergency situation. Well, you know what? There is an emergency situation. Um, I'm just going to call it how I see it. I'm not going to call out the person per se because I still don't have all the information. But what it seems to be is that we have a family that's in need, a family that's been part of SOC for a little while, a few years, that we tried to help with a few things. But anyway, long story short, there's a family where they're kind of getting messed over by one of the family members. I'll just say that. And they are in a little bit of a bind and need some help. So if it is possible that you do have something, I know there's a lot coming up. I know there's double portion coming up for Pentecost. I know some of you are already willing to put up, my family and I, and even others, as we're doing stuff in the holy days and just trying to get from place to place. Some of you even coming to Detroit, trying to get hotels and stuff. If there be anything that you can get, pretty much it was kind of put on my desk, and with me being out of things, I didn't really see it the way I needed to until pretty much today. The level of emergency there is. So if you're able to put out the family, if you can send it, I know it's really short notice. If you're able to send something, so we can send them at least something, even if we can't help them with the bills that are necessarily due, at least we can help them and make sure that if they're might even come to, if they need a place to stay for a couple nights or something, at least they're willing to have at least time to figure out what the next move is or whatever. We thank you for doing that in advance. If you like to be able to do so, if you want to be able to do so, send it to our cash if you can. If you want to be able to send it directly to them because you I still don't know you that much yet or whatever, let us know. We'll give you their information. But if you can help out, that's something that we do from time to time to help our members and help people, when we just don't have it to give. So we're just asking, pray about it, think about it if you can. If not, like I said, your prayers, they matter. And us touching and agreeing that Yah will take care and He will provide, and us trusting, hey, what did David say? I once was young, and now I'm old, and I've never seen those in right lawful standing forsaken, nor their seed begging bread. So we're not begging, we're asking if you're able to help, and we're going to believe Yah that these families are being taken care of, and yeah. All right, so I'll leave it there. Any other stuff, I don't have all the details on some of the stuff that I'm pretty sure has happened to the group, so I won't put the business out yet. But if it ends up being what I did, we might have to, somebody might have to get scolded. It is what it is. But love y'all much. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate you. Thank you for your prayers. All right, let's go ahead and get ready to get started. Once again, if you're able to rise your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, feel free to do so. We're going to say our Bible pledge. Shalom to everybody. How you doing, Brother Keith, Sister Bet, Sister Donna, Cultural Prospect, Minister Smith LeRae. Thank you once again for the word. Haley Berry, information for them. You can text me, and I can send it back to you, or send it back if you want to contact them direct. Just text me at the number, or if you'd like to just send it to us and then put it in. You can text us. It's in the link tree. So if you look at our link tree on the site, if you look on our page and go and look at the link tree where it says either website or even within I don't know if it says description or whatever it says under the name, but then also has website. It should have a link tree. It should have a couple numbers that you can text. It should have an email you can send to, and it should even have a website where you can go in there and find a number you can text as well. If you want to go ahead and text the family directly, then once I see your text after this, I can send you their information. You can text them directly if you want to send it direct, or if you want to send it to us, it should have Cash App information on there. Just when you send it, make sure. Or there's other stuff too, but it should have at least the Cash App information on there. And when you send it, you just make sure that you put in the description, this is for the family and needs, that we know we can send it straight off. All right. But thank you everybody for being on once again. How you doing, Haley Berry? How you doing, Sister Mignon? Let's see. Sister Mignon actually just put it in the chat if you're just doing the Cash App. How you doing, Minister Morel? How you doing, Sister Deborah? Leo? Carl? Till Daybreak? Yamin? Till Daybreak? Menaminer? Not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Manachel? Uncle Corey? Manachel Ma? Peanut Butter? Muhammad Arif? Papa Smurf Cam Johnson, Sister Greta, King, Styler, Davy Lee. Long time to talk to you, feels like. Hopefully all is well. Monica Shaw, big Brother Thomas. How you doing, sir? King Sosa, Dottie, and everybody. And thank you once again, everybody who's coming in from our early Rise of Bible study session. Once again, excellent message from Minister Sister Mary LeRae. If you missed it, you need to go find the recording. It was great. How you doing? Double L3? Nathaniel, Sister Shirley, Naughty Daddy, everybody, once again, appreciate you. Much love unto you. Thank you for joining us on this rise. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's do our Bible pledge and jump in. And we're getting back into this Exodus series. All right, now we warned y'all, this series is tough. It's not, this series, it seemed like it's going to be longer than what I thought. I thought this would be quicker than the Revelation series. And I'm explaining even where our theme comes from in a second, but it is what it is. If you're coming in, it's not gonna be easy. We're not coming here with the easy stuff, right? We really got to talk about this and be serious. And we're talking to a specific person. So I hope you're ready. But it's gonna be rough. If you got questions, comments, or concerns, especially if you haven't been with us for a while and you're gonna just hear some stuff and you're gonna assume some things, or even not even know what series we just came out of, or something we've been talking about for years, months, especially now. Even we've been doing this series for a little bit. So prayerfully you guys are ready. But it is what it is. It's gonna be in your face. So I told y'all that from the beginning. I made no apologies. All right, let's get into it. You can put your right hand on your Bible, your device in the air. Just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this is what I trust. For your Cheshire is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechava, Aman. Yechava Shem, his name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. All right. So today, theme. So we've gone over Exodus chapters 1 and chapters 2 already. We've broken some things down. We've had some Q&A. We actually had a little break in this for about 4 days because my body needed to rest. Right? Now, today we're coming back with a theme. The theme a little heavy. All right? If you didn't already see it, the theme's a little heavy. The theme is the soul of the American Negro. The theme a little heavy now. And notice I didn't say the soul of the FBA. I'm being specific. Holy Spirit led me to something specific. I'm being specific. I didn't say the soul of the FBA. I'm not saying that you can't be Foundation of Black American. Call yourself that if you will, right? But that's not who this is for. I didn't say you can't be ADOS. Call yourself that if you will. American descendants of slavery, right? You know, or you know, I get you, but I'm just being honest. This might not be for you. You might not want to hear this because you identify as something. When I'm talking about identity, it's something go deeper. I'm not talking about the soul of the African American. I'm not saying that I don't understand what an African American is at all, and that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm not called here today to talk about the soul of the black man. And I have no problem, so depending on when it's public or private, I have no problem being called a black man, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the soul of the American Negro. See, because there's been a miseducation. Come on, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. There's been a miseducation of the American Negro for so long that his soul is being lost. And I'm sorry, Brother Darius, if you're there, I think I saw you. Come on, man. Right? There's a soul, the soul of the American Negro. Now, this is gonna, this is gonna mess with us. But see, one of the biggest problems that's here is that if we're to talk about Exodus, we have to talk about who the people of Exodus are, right? Because not just were, we have to talk about who they are, who they were, and who they shall be. We have to talk when it comes to the word of Yah. Okay, you here? Okay, I thought I saw you coming. I just wanted to make sure. I'm gonna let you know. I don't know if I said your name earlier or not. I love you, sir. Be safe out there as always. Right? I need you to comprehend. There's a fight. There's been a fight for your soul, and I need you to see that the American Negro, not the black man. See, they have all these different terms, right? And if you ever notice, they keep calling you different things. Right? You keep calling yourself different things, but really you don't realize somebody else calls you different things. You've been called so many different things and identified as so many different things, and you've been shown so many different things, and you tried to your best to dress as so many different things, and have hair as so many different things, and have scripture as so many different things, and have churches as so many different things. How do you identify who you are? And if you don't know your identity, right, how do you identify your place and your importance? And watch this. The whole world, while you have been trying not to identify as who you are, allows you to keep being renamed and farmed and moved while simultaneously following everything you do because of the influence that's upon you. And for many persons, you think that's just some random thing. It's something that everybody talks about, but nobody talks about the direction. You think that there's no spiritual thought. You don't think there's any spiritual connection. How you doing, King D252? You don't think there's any spiritual connectivity to the fact that the whole, like the world, while they say they don't want to follow Yah, and they don't want to follow you, they don't want to recognize you, somehow, some way still is influenced by you, no matter what. How is it that you can't tell me these preachers are not trying their best to preach like you? Even the ones that are trying to tell you that you are nothing. Even the ones that are telling you that Trump is king, still trying to preach and teach like you, and you don't find any spiritual significance to that. They've done a number on us. Once again, we're talking about today the soul of the American Negro. You don't think, even I'm not saying it's all righteous. We shouldn't be uplifting, offering each other and selling stuff in the streets and treating our women wrong and doing all this stuff. But at the same time, can we simultaneously just talk about how, even though everybody will tell you that, they still want to follow you doing that. They'll tell you shouldn't joan or play the dozens, depending on where you come from. I don't know if y'all joan, play the dozens, or whatever y'all call it. You know, people call it different places. We call it joning. When you fry somebody up, we say we joning them. I don't know what you call it where you come from, but playing the dozens, right? Even when everybody say you shouldn't do that, guess what they want to do? They want to call it, they want to Joan like you. Even when they say you shouldn't have hips and your bosom looking like that and your shape like that and all that stuff, here they are getting the BBLs. They said don't get the hair, but here they are with the Bo Derek, and later the new Bo Derek ain't nothing but the Kardashians. Kardashians ain't nothing but Bo Derek on steroids. Bo Derek get the hairstyle, right? But everybody say, oh no, you know, but that's different, you know. It's, you know, like they always got a different name. Sister Shirley would have to teach me these names because I don't know. But you know, they always got the different names, you know, for all the stuff that you wear, right? That you have in your head, right? And when they wear it, it's different. You know, back in the day, you know, you couldn't call it weave, or certain people, you had to call it extension. Because the extension was different people, you know. They do the same thing. They do it more. They're the ones that were wearing. We forget. They talk about our women and make them feel bad. Which, by the way, I don't think sisters need to necessarily do it. But hey, you do what you do, right? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But they try to make our women feel bad about the eyelashes. And meanwhile, somebody else women wearing the eyelashes, right? But when you wear it, see, when they wore it in France for certain women of the night to wear, right? That's how they looked upon it. But when you wore it, all of a sudden you wore it with a little more style. All of a sudden they start wearing it again, and now nobody says anything when they wear it. Do you not see anything spiritual about that? Yeah, even the bonnets, right? Which once again, hey, you do what you do, right? You're gonna be with your husband, right? You have your wife. Present your wife to yourself, right? But right, if you feel there's a time and a place, or you feel like you can wear it everywhere, or whatever, that's you do you. That being said, though, right, when you cover your head, it's fine. When they cover their head, it's not. There's a spiritual thing going on. There's a fight for the soul, been a fight for the soul of the American Negro, so much so that now you don't want to call yourself a Negro. They done beat the Negro out of our mouths. And I'm gonna saying, and I'm gonna go ahead and just hit you with a quick pause. But I'm not gonna pause no more on it because it's something that we need to say. We need to come out of this, just at least for this little bit today. I'm gonna say a funny saying, I guess, but it is what it is, right? Hear what I'm saying? I know sometimes I'm a child myself, but hear what I'm saying, right? We need to stop allowing persons to take the words of our fathers, right? Our fathers' words, right? Or we need to stay in our, how the Holy Spirit had to say yesterday, I think it was. We need to make sure that we stay in our Father's mouths. How you doing, Lisa? How you doing, Regina? Right? Our Father's mouths. We need to ensure that we stay inside of our Father's mouths. I'm on, Elder Terrible. They are obsessed. And how you doing, Brother Alton, if I didn't say so already? Right? We need to stay inside of what our forefathers taught. And when I say our forefathers, I'm talking about the American Negro. And I'm not saying it just because you put it up here. I was going to say this already, sis. Right? Just to let you know. When it comes to Jamaica, right? That's part of who I am. When it comes to Wampanoag, right? That's part of who I am. When it comes to Anakitoya, Cherokee, that's part of who I am. When it comes to Seminole, that's part of who I am. When it comes to Eti, that's part of who I am. When it comes to Ghana, right? That's part of who I am. When it comes to Igbo, that's part of who I am. I know that's Nigeria. I know what I'm talking about. That's part of who I am. You want to go back to the Ghanaian, when it comes to Shwit, when it comes to Ashanti, when it comes to Ashanti Shwit, I'm proud of who I am. When it comes to Yahadasha'al, I'm proud of who I am. But when it also comes to the Negro, today we focusing on the Negro. This is why we got to talk nationality. I'm talking about the Negro today. See, because when the Negro shows up, everything shuts down. How you doing, DKI? And there's more that I can say I'm proud that I am too. And by the way, there's some Irish there too. I'm proud of who I am. I'm not, I'm just giving you as far as, but we talk there, but I'm focused on the American Negro. How you doing, double OG, triple OG, right? There's some Irish there too. There's some Mediterranean there. There's some other things there, right? There's some Moroccan there. There's some this, there's some that. There's some Timbuktu. I'm proud of who I'm. We can go through the long list, whatever. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm proud of who I am and all those things. But today, I'm telling you that this soul of the American Negro is under attack. And somebody would say, duh, right? I get you. Yeah, okay, Kofi, you know, enlighten me. You know, you're not giving me any enlightenment today. But I'm here to tell you because watch this. What does the word soul mean? See, now we're going somewhere. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to overdo it today. My first time standing up in a long time. In front of y'all, at least. Right? What does the word soul mean? In the Hebrew, it is the word kan, but in the Greek, it is the word. Come on, it is the word psyche or psyche, Psyche. So when I talk about one's psyche, I talk about one's soul. So you got to explain it like that too, you know, because there's going to be some pastor, some preacher, somebody later on going to come through and say, how are you going to talk about the soul? The soul is what attaches the spirit to the body. Yes, it is. And you didn't know the whole time that every time you said it, you were talking about psychology. It's still something that's eternal. But see, that's why you got to have a kingdom. Y'all remember we talked about that a long time ago? We had like 12 points of kingdom this, kingdom that. And we talked about kingdom psychology. That was a few years ago, wasn't it? That's a while ago. When we talked about, we had a whole thing. We talked about kingdom psychology. Yeah, because there's a psychology. Now watch this again. So the soul. So the soul is the seat of emotions. It's the seat of it could be the seat of opinions. It could be the seat of a thing. But if we talk about the soul of a nation, well, the soul of a nation means the psychology of a nation. The psychology of a nation should be based off of the psyche or the soul, if you will. Well, somebody might not like that. Let me fix that up. The psychology of the nation should be based upon the mindset of the Most High God. But what if the nation doesn't even know who they are? Shalom, brother. How you doing? Come on in, everybody. The water is fine today. It's going to be a little dangerous. It's going to bite a little bit today. It's going to be a little hard to hear some of this stuff. And by the way, we're still in the Exodus series. I praise y'all. See, all praises. Once again, my apologies for being a bad example today. I got to get my water intake though. All right, look. So, the soul. The soul. And how you doing, Peach? Thanks for being on. Thank y'all for the likes, share, subscription, hit notification tab, the hypes, being part of what we're doing, donations of time, talent, effort, energy, behind the scenes, all that stuff, in front of the scenes, even, yes, financially helping us do what we do. We appreciate it, right? And how you doing? And I thank you for the repost as well. See, watch this. Even, so, you know, all things work together. We be saying this stuff. And then don't look to see what this stuff actually means, right? And this stuff that I went through recently, I've been seeing a lot of different things come back, and some things that I realized I need to be better at, some things that I thought I was over, some things I thought I had forgiven, some things that blah, blah, you know, didn't feel like I was on my way out, but I had that kind of pain I was going through, kind of like, dang, like it feels almost like, you know, like death on you type of thing, right? You know, anybody been there before, you know, you can attest, you know, you go through some things, it's kind of like, wow. And it reminds you of your mortality, right? But as I was going through the stuff, as I was coming out, and been coming out, especially the last few days, when I've been able to get back on the live session, I guess since Saturday, I noticed, you know, a few things, and my son and I, and then my wife and I, so all three of us eventually, but my son and I at first, we had kind of been getting into some things in history. And, you know, I was like, okay, this is cool. You know, he's my son, preteen age, you know, about to turn 11 this year. You know, started to ask some questions, and he'll say some things, and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize, you know, he's at that age, and you're like, oh, I didn't know you knew that. I need to pay attention to you, to your stuff. Right? But he ain't doing nothing bad, you know, but I'm just saying, like, he, you know, he's having some stuff, so we having some real conversation about history, and then about culture, and then he wanted to talk about black history, and then the stuff popped up. The reason I've been talking about Chuck the Builder so much is he's been really interested in it, and the ramifications and what's going on with these words, and you know, why are people getting this, and why are people doing this, and blah blah. And one of the things that happened, you know, as we were talking, and my wife has gotten into the conversations now. So the past few days we were all been talking about stuff regularly, and we were talking a lot about the court case and different things that were going on. And then this guy named Sneeko, who kind of hates himself. You know, he's mixed with so many different things, but he always talks bad on his black side, which has to do a lot with colorism, which we might even go into today. We might wait till tomorrow. But long story short, as I'm going through this stuff, I started realizing the Holy Spirit started showing me, was like, yeah, you know, Exodus, you even said it, Kofi, but you weren't really prepared. You weren't hearing me. Exodus is not going to just be everything line upon line, precept upon precept, just like Revelation. Every word of the Bible, as we teach here, if it's preached in the Word, it's supposed to be by an omnipresent Elohim. If you don't know what omnipresent is, that means that He's present everywhere and in every time. You hear what I'm saying? He's present everywhere and He's present every time. That means if He's eternal. So that means if Yah speaks a word, His word functions where He spoke it. It functions when He spoke it, but it also functions where we see it, and it also functions where others shall see it. In other words, if somebody speaks a word, this is what it's supposed to be. The word of Yah is eternal, every word. I know somebody said that's a specific word, yeah, but it's still eternal. That's how our Yah works. And by the way, Minister Stephen, if I didn't say so earlier, please forgive me. Welcome. Shalom. Hopefully you're staying safe out there. I think I saw you pop up on here. Sir, please forgive me if I didn't say something earlier. Right? So the word of Yah is in this position. Hear me, beloved. The word of Yah should have us in a position. We should have a thought process of a mindset. How you doing, Sister Judy? Where every time we receive a word, we should know that it's for past, present, and future simultaneously. Right? So Exodus, if it's spoken back then, we got to figure out who it's spoken to. Right? We got to figure out who it's spoken to. And if it's spoken properly, and I want to tell y'all, if I miss comments today, if I mess up with somebody's hand today, please forgive me. My vision is not always the best right now. I'm on recovery, so I'm seeing stuff and I'm realizing. So I'm standing up for the first time. I got my chair ready. I think I'm fine. But just if I miss something you say, give me a little bit of grace today, if you don't mind. I think I saw somebody put a bar or something like that, but I thought it said something else. So my apologies, Joshua. I think it was. So forgive me. So, but I appreciate y'all. All right. So, but watch. So, past, present, and future. So we got to figure out who Exodus is for. How you doing, Sister Beth? And once we figure out who Exodus is for and what they're getting there, then who is it for, right? Who is it for in that present? But also, what did that speak to in their past? What does that speak to in their future? It's the same people. And by the way, Revelation brings up Exodus and tells us to look at what Kemet did and to look at what bondage had us in Mizraim, and to make sure that the same Israel and the 144,000 and those that are grafted into the nation, as we become greater than the stars in the sky and greater than the sands that you see before the sea, right? We're supposed to become like a nation that has no number that you can put on it. 144,000 you put on it because that's those who keep the law, representing the fact that, hey, there is a group that literally does not change, should not change, should remain in order. And even if they grow exponentially, still cubed up the way that heaven is cubed up in Revelation 21:22. It's the same thing. There should be keepers of the word who should believe our report. So who are those people? And then who are those people now? And who are those people to come? The word should talk to the past, the present, and future. And there still are today, even according to Revelation, people that need an exodus from bondage, from Kemet, from modern Kemet, from modern Egypt, if you will. That makes sense, right? I'm not saying anything out of school, right? That makes sense. There's a specific people that we need to figure out what's going on. And why is it that we can't find them, but we have such a fight about them, or these people who are supposed to be the way out that people can attach themselves to? How is it that we have all these Israelis saying that they are the chosen? Uh-oh, I told you it's not going to be easy today. I'm not here to talk about so everybody that don't look like us, well, whatever. I'm talking about nationality now, right? How you doing, Miss Missy? How you doing, Kevin? Thanks for being part of the community, Miss Missy. I missed you when you were doing that. Sorry, right? But I'm here to tell you the truth. I've just come with word, right? How is it that the Bible declares that there'll be 144,000 out of 12 nations, right, that come out of Israel, and to make sure that they are in position that others can be grafted into them, that the Messiah himself comes out of, and that will sitting with him in high places, and others who believe in what the Messiah did for them will be able to become part of the same family, the same kingdom, and be able to go into Shamayam, into heaven. And yet we have a group of persons that say that they are those 144,000, but say that nobody can be part of them, and say that they should be offered others, and say that you should not be able to get in. And then when we say that we are who we say, the persons don't even want to look and say, oh, we're wrong. They don't want to believe in Revelation. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 says that there are those that we need to know that there are those who have gone through tribulation. He's seen our tribulation, he's seen our patience, he sees our works, he knows our works, and he says he knows the poverty, at least the fact that we think we are poor. And when you look at that word poverty, even in the Greek, it's a word that actually means that you consider yourself poor. He said, I'm intimate with the fact, I know that you consider yourself, you think of yourself, you're always asking for things as if you don't have within your own community. That's what that word means, poverty there, in the Greek, in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. You are always considering yourself. You're always saying, I have to get from somebody else. We cannot establish anything from within ourselves. Amen. We are worthy of his vengeance. That's Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 through 11, by the way. Excuse me. Right? With that being said, we are worthy of his. Come on, somebody. We're worthy of his vengeance, but watch this. It says in Revelation 2:9 that I know these things you've gone through, and I know the blasphemy, is what it says. It's blasphemous. The blasphemy of those that say that they are you and are not. They say that they are Yehovah, that they are Judah, they are Jews, and they're not. But they are actually the synagogue of the adversary. That's what it says. I'm not, this is in your Bible, it's in Revelation. It says they are the synagogue of the adversary, of the Satan. If it says that's blasphemous, it's literally telling you to say that you are who you are not, especially to say you are Israel and you are not, is blasphemous. If we have evidence contrary to you being Israel, you are committing blasphemy. I know, it's going to be rough today for some. That's all right. This word, just like the Bible, ain't for everybody. This word ain't for everybody. Thank you for the love, whoever that was. That was a nice rose. Thank you for putting that on there, right? How you doing, anime? Right? So watch this. Then Revelation 2:14 comes behind that and says to beware of Balaam doctrine. What is Balaam doctrine? Balaam doctrine is based off of Numbers 22, 23, and 24, which really the word doctrine just means Torah. It means instruction. So when people try to change the Torah and make it Balaam Torah, what does that mean? It means that Balaam was a prophet, and whatever he said happened exactly how he said it. And Israel's enemies, afraid of what Israel could become, came to him, right? Afraid that if Israel ever turned her eye on them, they wouldn't be able to do anything, although the Most High didn't even want us to have anything to do with them. And so they went to the prophet Balaam, and Balaam, they said, hey, Balaam, you speak, everything you speak happens the way it is, blah, blah. We need you to go ahead and start speaking things against Israel. And he's like, that's not how it works. I only can speak what the Most High tells me to speak. They said, no, stop playing with us, we'll pay you gold, we'll pay you this. He's like, no, I'm telling you. At first, he was like, I'm telling you, I can't just speak whatever. That's not how it works. Everything happens the way I say, because everything happens the way the Most High says. I'm just an instrument. I'm just a trumpet. And thank you for the love and how you doing, Be Will. I'm just the trombone. You know, you hearing the stuff, and you like to slide and everything. You know, right? You like you like the trumpet. You like it when I had the mute and everything in. But you like the trumpet. Don't realize that there's somebody playing the trumpet. I'm just a vessel. The Most High says, so I say. The Most High does, so I do. That's it. But they couldn't take that, and he eventually gets swayed, and he says, I'm gonna go ahead and try it. It's a whole story that goes with it. Long story short, right? He ends up giving them enough to where they're able to start putting together things that become a stumbling block to Israel. or at least that's what we mean when we say Balaam doctrine, right? Is that now there's so much stuff that there's a stumbling block to Israel. Yeah, I hear you, be with. Right? So, so now, so watch this. So now what happens is that you got Balaam doctrine, and we're warned about it in Revelation, where with anybody who's coming, right, Balaam them coming with a doctrine, a construction, changing the word to stumble us. And the verse right after it says, and be aware of Nicolaitan doctrine. Now, before, to the assembly of Ephesus in Revelation chapter 2, it was called Nicolaitan deeds, but at least it said the persons in Ephesus at least had enough sense, right? We had enough sense, those of us that were there, to at least make sure that even though we might have lost our first love, we never gave into their deeds. The Nicolaitans were persons that wanted us to bow down to idols and eat stuff we shouldn't be eating and to do all stuff like that, and then even to get into sexual activity we shouldn't or whatever. Right, and to worship all types of weird stuff that was going on with Artemis and everything like that. So at least we had enough sense not to get into that stuff. Nowadays, right, the soul of Israel is being fought for. Right, nowadays, right, it's hey, everybody wants to get on you nowadays. I hear bisexual thrown around more than I hear male or female. Right? Nowadays, if you say I'm male, if you say I'm female, you feel like you have to be like, hold on, I don't know if it's okay to say if I'm male or if I'm female, because somebody might get offended. But if somebody walks around with their literally, you know how there's a saying that says you and I do this at times. You wear your heart on your sleeve. There's a saying of being like, hey, people can see how you think and everything. It's very easily could be said that people wear their sex on their sleeve. Right? Like, you're not supposed to talk about being male or female, but as you walk around, persons walk around all day and make sure that you know that they're bi, or make sure that that they're gay, or make sure that you know that they're lesbian, or make sure that you know that they're trans, or make sure that you know whatever. But we're not supposed to. Don't say you're male or female now, right? There's a fight for your soul. Matter of fact, like we said before, it's a fight for the American Negro. The soul of the American Negro. We're going to be talking about this all throughout the week. So I'm just letting you know, if this is too much for you, come back next week. I'm serious. Come back Saturday. Maybe Sunday. We might do this through Sunday. I don't know. But come back Sunday. Sunday would be nice because we'll be talking about Pentecost until Sunday through Saturday. So if this be a little too much, and then when we come, but after we finish that Saturday to Sunday to Saturday, we're gonna start where we left off. But Holy Spirit showed me as I was talking to Mountain that's for the people of Israel who existed back then, but the same people who are of that lineage who exist today. We still need an exodus, and we can't pretend that the same way that the soul of the people back then were under attack is not the way that the soul of the people are not under attack today. And so we got to figure out, once again, once we know that the word soul breaks down to the word psychology, well, now this is not such a difficult thing for us to broach, because the psychology of the American Negro is everywhere except hope. The soul of the American Negro, right, is everywhere except hope nowadays. Matter of fact, ask the average American Negro where they come from, and once again, no offense to my brethren, I'm just being honest. More of them will tell you how FBA they are. You just made that up. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't have any value. What I'm trying to say is, though, you just made that up. It's just like when people talk about not Hanukkah, but what's the Afrocentric Hanukkah? Take my black card if you want. I don't care right now. What's the Afrocentric Hanukkah? I see it. I hear Harambe and all this stuff. What is it? Kwanzaa. Thank you. How you doing, CT? Kwanzaa was made up in the 60s. It was made up, and people in the 60s didn't even like persons who were your John Henry Clark's and other persons thought it was trash when it was made up, because it's not. They're not even coming from our perspective. They're like, how are you going to take a bunch of cultures, do all this stuff, just throw it all together and say whatever? Now, to be fair, I feel like that's kind of something that we can't do against them and act like, John Henry Clark and them aren't kind of doing the same thing when they're doing their teachings either, to be fair. Oh, wow. I didn't realize we just lost. Hold on one second, y'all. We just lost a group. My apologies. Okay, my apologies, y'all. We just lost. We had lost signal on one of the groups. I had to make sure that we got the signal back. Everybody see and hear me all right? Everybody see and hear me all right? Okay, all right. My apologies. We lost signal from one of the platforms. We need to make sure everybody was with us. All right, how you doing? Hey, oh, servant of the Most High. Hey, how you doing? Okay. Buduk. Buduk et Barak. Barak at Buduk. Okay. Yeah, Aman. All right. So, we and I don't even know. I'm sorry. Where did I cut off at? But anyway, the soul of the American Negro. The volume went down some. Okay, I don't know about that. I can't really. I don't know. If it went down terribly, you might have to. Did the volume go down for everybody? I've never experienced that on this platform, so I don't know how to do it. You said Kwanzaa? Oh, wow. Okay, we might have to take a break today. I didn't know all this was. I haven't been back over this one in a long time on this side. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Portugal. We're gonna talk about Spain. We're gonna talk about the Caribbean. We're gonna talk about all that today. We're gonna talk about quite a few things. We're talking about the American Negro. Like I said, we're gonna talk about this throughout the week. So we're just gonna have Holy Spirit take its way. But as far as Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa was something that was literally made up. And if you look at your favorite, if you look at your favorite, like I said, John Henry Clark, persons of that ilk or whatever, they were kind of like, what are we doing with Kwanzaa? Why are we actually pushing that? That's something that we shouldn't really be worried about working around and doing certain things with, because we're literally saying, okay, let's just take a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of random places, and let's just say that all that stuff is all right, can deal with it, whatever. And it's not. It's really not. Like we're making stuff up, and we kind of doing the same thing now. Now we have this thing FBA. I get what you mean when you say you're a foundation of Black American. I get what you're saying when you're saying, hey man, my people, we're a foundation, we're the building blocks, this and that or whatever. But if you look at your people who are leading the foundation of Black Americans, think twice. Look at them now. Who are your leaders over there? Some of you don't even know, right? I'm not saying they've ever done anything of value, but you gotta check out and see they set a precedence what they've done before, and see who they're talking with. They're having conversations with persons who are alt-right and KKK. And they're figuring that, hey, you know what, even though we hate each other, the enemy of our enemy is our friend, but you got to see who you laying down in the bed with. I told persons this the first time Trump got in office. Everybody was so busy fighting fighting. We got to fight against Trump. We got, and I was telling them, I was like, hey, y'all don't laying in bed with persons y'all don't agree with. And the person's like, no, man, we're all going to get to, we got to come against him. And meanwhile, as soon as Trump got out, they started I'm telling you, big time, your big time names of some of these people, who are there. They started calling the cops on each other. They started arresting each other. They started taking each other's businesses from them. They started clowning them. Black men that were working with black women were going against each other and all this stuff because you didn't have an actual united front. You were not confidants, which means that you were for each other. You were not constituents, which means that you were for what each other's for. You were comrades. You were against who the other person was against. And once you no longer had the same person to be against, you realized you no longer stood for each other, and you went right back to being against one another. See, and this is what all these persons who we keep blaming and this and that or whatever, they know this about us because they study us better than we study us. And I know somebody don't want to hear that, and somebody trying to say that I'm trying to say that somebody else is better than us. Da, da. If that's all you heard, hey, so be it. I'm gonna say it again. Your enemy, who you hate so much, right? We're gonna get into it because I don't just mean the white man, right? It's deeper than that. But that being said, your enemy, who you hate so much, studies you. The man who did, do you know that the man who put together most of the what is it called, Project 2025 or whatever, the whole Trump thing everybody was talking about, be ready for, and it is a real thing. It was a real thing the whole time, right? Do you know that the man who did that has like a doctorate level, or might even have a doctorate in like African American studies or something like that? He studied you. They put him through school to make sure he was ready for this moment in time. That man got like if he doesn't have a doctorate in it, I know he at least got a master's, but he basically got like a doctorate level education in you. You don't think your enemy has studied you? Sisters, the ones that make you feel like you ain't pretty, you don't think that they don't study you? Thomas Jefferson studied the women so much, right, that he was out there. Look, think about this. The ones he impregnated more. Who did Thomas Jefferson impregnate more? Black women or white women? Let's just go. I mean, well, if that little piece is too much, you can just go like that. It's easier for you to go like that than for me to even do that, right? But you hear what I'm saying? Who was he? Who was it? Now he slept with more black women, had more black babies. They would have called him, mulatto, but they would have been better mulatto because they had a white founder. When he had more black babies than he had white babies, for sure. By volume, by generationally, there's more Jeffersons that are black out there than there are, not just ones that took on the name, but of his seed, there's more Jeffersons out there that are black than white, for sure. And yet, he said that black women were lazy, they were ugly, they were smelly, they were hairy. That's what he said. That's what he said. He said they were dumb. He said all they were good for was having children. All they had value for was having children. And he said that they shouldn't mix. You don't think that the same man who was doing all that to you didn't study how to make sure? This is the same man that wrote his own version of the slave Bible. Just did it with the four so-called Godspells, the four called Gospels. He took out anything of Christ that he didn't think he liked. Then he wrote it in four languages, and then he put it out. And when I presented it to them at Monticello, like that, they didn't like that at all. They were like, oh no, why would you say that? He didn't write slave Bible. He didn't do blah blah. Yeah, he did. He was a slave master who took out all the stuff he didn't want in there. Right? That's what he did. And then he basically wrote his own version of it. You want to call it the Jefferson Bible? Okay, because that's what you got to sell it as. But I was like, I know what it is. It's a slave Bible. And he did that to who? The American Negro. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't mix. I want you to get this part. I'm talking about now. We're going into Willie Lynchville a little bit. So I don't want you to miss this. Because somebody gonna be like, oh, he talking about you can't be mixed white or black. Because a whole bunch of us ain't really full white or full black or whatever you want to call the stuff now anyways, right? We're talking about nationality. But I want you to catch this, okay? Doesn't mean that we don't still have E1, B1A we can track, right? Doesn't mean that we still have L2, L3, L4. But I want you to catch what my meaning is, because some of you are missing, all right? And all that stuff that he did, do you not know the reason why Willie Lynch? Because Willie Lynch taught Thomas Jefferson's grandparents, and Willie Lynch taught George Washington's parents. Just do the math. How old was George Washington when he was born? Willie Lynch came and taught those in Virginia in 1712. George Washington is what, about 40 when he becomes president? 40, 50. Okay, do the math. Thomas Jefferson, a little younger than George Washington. Do the math. Okay? All right. So so this is Willie Lynch came to teach them. All right, so PK, Willie Lynch had told these Virginians and these white folk that was flying, or it's not flying back then, I guess shipping, right? Paid to make sure that he was shipped all over the place to teach them around the world. He would he was teaching them how to make sure that the slaves didn't wouldn't be offed physically, because if you kept offing your slaves physically, it meant that you did not, according to him, you did not have good economics. Mm-hmm. Right? And by the way, before somebody hits me with this happens every once in a while. Before somebody says the Willie Lynch stuff isn't even real, because they just started saying that in the 1980s, so you got to check who told you that. That's a new thing, right? Everybody said it was real during slavery. Now all of a sudden it's not real. But even if you think it's not real, then my next question to you is, did the stuff that they put in there, did it really happen? Uh oh. Even if you're somebody that says the Willie Lynch letters are not real, did the stuff that was in there, did it really happen? Because if the answer is yes, then your he it wasn't real thing no matter anyways. Not for this conversation. Okay? Not for this conversation, because I'm talking about what their meaning was. So whether you want to say it was something that wasn't real, or somebody looking back and saying this is what they did, okay. eh, for this sake of this conversation, I'm just letting you know it's not really going to do much. Okay, so so I believe it really happened. But anyways, so that being said, how you doing, Jason? He said manipulation, so we couldn't break the chains. So they said this is what they said when they would put white and black. I didn't say when you. I said when they would put white and black together. Their goal was to make sure, according to their law, that they put as much good white blood in the black blood and muddied it up to where they could have different levels of slaves. It's kind of like the way that you do. I just learned this recently. Like I was like yesterday or 2 days ago, years old, when I found this out. But apparently, when you do gas, this is why I said I didn't realize how much plastic is actually made out of oil. Now I know I'm not going to be drinking out of plastic pretty much at all. I'm being a bad example today, but I got to get my water intake, like I said, so I'm gonna do what I got to do for today. But they basically just put the gas in the thing, they treat it, they heat it up, and then they lift it, and the gas starts hitting certain levels and staying in there, right? So you have gas that goes to the top that becomes petroleum, and then you have like a second set. I forget what that is. It might be I don't know if that's gasoline, right? And then underneath that you have a set that gets to be your plastic, right? And or as the stuff keeps settling, it becomes something else. Eventually, I think the fifth one down becomes your diesel oil for those who do trucking and stuff, or have certain vans that have to have diesel fuel. And then you keep on going down to where like the crude oil that settles all the way at the bottom. At the bottom, that's actually where you get your asphalt from, right? There's a couple that I skipped in there. I forget what they are, but ultimately, that's a different thing. They put that in there. Well, they did the same thing. They said, hey, we'll just go ahead and let the good white man. I'm not trying to say all white men, but I'm talking about the system that we're coming out of, talking about specifically, right? So-called white men come in there and do all this stuff or whatever and say, hey, yeah, we're going to mix as much as we can. And then whatever levels of black, whatever different shades of black, we'll raise them to do certain things. See, so house Negroes, they can in certain areas, they got to look certain ways. And if we're going to send them to certain schools, they got to look certain ways. And if we're going to have them out in the field, where they got to look certain ways. And if we're going to have them do things, like learn how to read enough to be able to help us do whatever, they're going to have to look certain ways. Oh, yeah. They tried to manufacture. So even a lot of the person, see, this is what I'm saying, the soul of the Negro, we got to come back to self. Because even a lot of the things that we argue about looks was designed for us specifically to argue against each other. Go back to the Willie Lynch letter when you have time and look at it. And it says, and he says, these are the reasons why, that he said, these are some of the ways that I use to cause the slaves to come against each other. Not for us to have to come against them, for them to come against each other. And he says, I'm going to start with age, not because it's the most important, but simply because it is alphabetically first in order. That's what he said. That's the way they studied you and then came against you. They created versions of you. They bred you. Beloved. Just like spiritually, they bred you. And emotionally, you have been bred. Physically, you have been bred. Uh, uh, your financial thought process has been bred. If you were raised to keep in an area where they kept breeding each other because of redlining, and now it's redlining is gone. Now it's just not there as far as them having an actual red line. You know, the only reason they call it redlining is because in certain places they went and found out that there were areas where literally people used to draw or even put up with yarn a red line on a map that was on the wall so that people knew, hey, they can't be there. Right? But that's the only reason. It's not called redlining, um, just because of, or it's not called just because the red line is gone, right? That you can't find physical red lines like that anymore. Doesn't mean that there's actually no red line. But these are things that we were told. But also too, if you keep going through Willie Lynch's thing, he says not only age, but then he says color. He said we literally bred persons to ensure that they would be different colors, and that we taught them that the way that we bred them, that since some of them were lighter, they must have white blood in them, which, by the way, isn't guaranteed anyways. If you know about Africa, if you're just thinking about Africa only, because obviously some of us are Native American too, right? But some of us are Israelites, some of us were coming from different places in the world. That being said, when I say American, Native American, I'm talking about North America and South America. That being said, right? Even if you go just by Africa, which many persons think only, Africa's extremely diverse. It's the most diverse place ever. Even if you take away those who are in the supposed Sahara, and only think about the supposed sub-Saharan, I hate how they do that, right? You'll still discover that by far we are very diverse, and that there's still persons out there that are coming out with blue eyes and light skin and hair that looks like it's crimped, or hair that looks like it's nappy, or hair that looks like it's straight, or hair that is an afro, or hair that's an afro but it's not quite what is it, C3, C4? I don't know these terms. So y'all gonna have to help me learn these terms. Right? But we don't know about ourselves, right? And the people who literally try to create everything. So you got to realize they didn't just, and this is when it gets tough. This is when we talk about the need of an exodus. See, back in, look, if somebody in Kemet, right? If somebody in Kemet, I need you to, Holy Spirit, help me with this, because I know somebody not going to like where we go today. It's okay. It's okay. Holy Spirit, have your way. Look. It's 4C. Okay, thank you. Look, do you not realize that in Kemet they controlled everything to the point to where, remember, they came to the two midwives and they said, any woman that comes to the birthing stool, take their sons away. That's not new and exclusive only to today, but it's the same spirit. It's a different head on the serpent. It's a different head on the beast, but it's the same body. It's the same beast. It's the same foundation. It is. And persons get mad when you talk like this. And most of the time, if not all of the time, it's because they're persons who benefit from it, or persons who really could care less about the word of Yah anyways. And that's why I say today, we got to realize it's going to be rough. I wish I could make it nicer for you. I wish I could try to liven it up. I wish I could make it more of a party or whatever. But when somebody do evil, evil is evil. And you got to recognize the evil. If you recognize the amount of evil, you'll start realizing why you should have been moving Not just moving physically, but moving emotionally, moving financially. You know, they always say stuff like the black dollar, this, that, or whatever. I want you to start thinking about the Negro dollar. That's right. And it is, once again, regardless of skin color, because skin color, really, colorism exists before racism. Or actually, well, it depends on how you look at racism. If we look at racism from within how we do, racism is ISM is a system. ISM, the main word, makes it a system. The suffix ISM means we're talking about a system. A race is a competition. The competition became based off of color later on. Now back then, the Kemetic persons looked so much like us, you couldn't tell the difference between us and Kemet. So you could say it's racism, but racism wasn't based off of color. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Right? But racism wasn't based off of color yet. It was still racism. That's why you'll hear me say like racism, white supremacy. Because then those who think that they're supreme because of a so-called color, because white's not even a color, right? You know that white means clear, see-through, bright, whatever. The whiter something gets, the brighter something gets, the whiter something gets, the lighter something gets, right? Matter of fact, white has color in it if it's light. But that's not because the light is actually white, it's because the light is bright. If the light is really bright and doesn't have a prism that you can see, have it broken down, then you can't see all the colors coming through it, but it doesn't mean it's actually what you call white. It means it actually it's too bright for you to see. So you see it as white. Do you know in space that the parts of the universe that cannot reflect back at us, guess what it turns up as in these telescopes? It turns up as white. Not because it's a color, not because there's nothing out there. It's because there's nothing that's been able to come back yet for us to be able to see. The speed of light. When it'll be coming back home, which place you talking about? I don't know. How you doing, Yoki? There could be a part of the community, right? So, so persons don't catch this, right? So, in black, guess what? Black is all colors in there, but black is all colors in a place to where it's not bright. So you think black and white, we have to always do this thing. White actually usually means clear, bright, or see-through, right? And if you can't handle what's coming at you, then you call it white. Or it just means that it has less color, depending on how we're talking about it, right? The white, if you see polar bear fur under a microscope, what color is polar bear fur? Has no color. Unless you're talking about deeper polar bear fur, but the part that you call white actually is clear. Since it's clear, so but you call it white. If you go in your body right now, look for a white blood cell. If you find a white blood cell, something wrong with you. You need to be seen immediately, right? But go in your body and look for a white blood cell. What color will it be? It has no color. It'll be clear. If somebody says there's white light, that's what you think. Even people think the sunlight of being white light, right? If you put it through a prism, you'll find what? The colors of the rainbow. If you take a white snowflake and you put it under a microscope, guess what color it'll be? It'll have no color. It'll be clear. I'm not trying to say that a white person, see, this is why we got to come out of what they taught you, including the slave masters had to teach their own families and overseers and everybody else to believe this nonsense too. There's no such thing as a white person walking around, because a white person would have to have no melanin. To have no melanin means that they would be dead. Hmm. Right? See, if somebody hears that and thinks that I'm being racist or reverse racist, no. I'm trying to tell you, like, all of us have been taught under a system to where you think that everything must be whiter or everything has to be this, or we have to make up colors to make somebody's stuff work. Matter of fact, can I tell you something right now? Some of you are not gonna like this. You don't even realize why eugenics was made. Today we're talking about the soul of the American Negro. Soul, to make it a quick working definition, is psychology. That's what it means in the Greek. For those who love to talk about the Greek and the Latin. So let's just make quick work of that. So before somebody says, you can't talk about the soul of a group of people, yes you can. Stop it. If you can't handle it, that you can handle it. It doesn't mean you cannot. Right? Who shall believe our report? They're not my teacher. They're not my master. Right? So watch this. Okay, you ready? You ready? And thanks for being on. Is it Carolyn? Thank y'all for the love. Appreciate you. All right. So we talk about even eugenics. A lot of you don't know that eugenics was simply created to speed up evolution. A lot of persons have no clue what I mean by that. How you doing, Devil? Thanks for being on, as always. Right? I'm gonna say this again. A lot of persons have no clue that eugenics was only created to try to speed up what is considered to, because it's a theory. It's not a fact anyways. But considered to be at the theory of evolution. How you doing, Affordable Shalom? What do you mean, Pastor Kofi? What you mean, what you mean, Marach, More, etc.? What you mean? Okay. Charles Darwin, because I know everybody said, well, before Charles Darwin, stop it. Y'all wasn't talking about this until Darwinism. And if you know about it before Darwinism, you should know about Carl Linnaeus. If you know about Carl Linnaeus, then that's the furthest it really goes, or at least the group that he was in, you know, and they were trying their best simply to get away from having people go to the Christian God for everything, but still make it Christian enough, right? These people were preachers and stuff. Charles Darwin went to school to be a preacher. How you doing, Sister Taylor? Right? We're gonna stop with the bull. I ain't cursing. All right, whatever. All right, we're gonna stop with the nonsense. All right, how you doing, New Malcolm? If I didn't say so already. All right, Charles Darwin was a preacher. And I need you to know that Charles Darwin preached the message of Carl Linnaeus and made it bigger. You know who Carl Linnaeus is and those who are basically of his ilk, and the doctrine that they had, because it's called the Linnaean doctrine. Because they believe this stuff, right? And this is their beliefs and this is their religion. It's called the Linnaean doctrine, instruction. Same word we use when we say Torah. When we say it's the Torah of Yah, it's his instruction, it's his doctrine. They're saying that this is doctrine. You don't think about these words being the same because somebody told you where they're scientific. No, that's their belief system. Charles Darwin was a lunatic. It doesn't mean just he's crazy. No, he believed in worshiping Ishtar, the moon goddess. He was into lunar worship. Got in a group of persons where they praised and worshiped Easter, which is why you guys still worship Easter instead of doing Passover. And why you guys still sit up there and say, look at the full moon, and don't actually use the moon as what it's supposed to, which is say, hey, this is a new month. That's where the word term moon comes from anyway. Month. It's the same word. But Charles Darwin worshipped the moon. We talked about in our first part of this series that if you want to find out what a group of people are, what the nation is, find out who they worship. Every nation started with worship. Whether it was a spiritual being, an idol, a so-called spiritual being, a glass of water, a tree, or a person, every nation started with worship. You want to see what Idi Amin did? He wanted to be worshipped. Check out what he did to make sure he was worshipped. You want to see what happened in Haiti with Papa Doc and Baby Doc? Papa Doc wanted to be worshipped. See what he did to be worshipped. It's not that hard. You want to find out what happened with George Washington and all them? Hey, why do they have all these monuments to these guys, and why all of them seem to be in Greek domes and stuff like that? They were not Christians. They were not Christian nationalists. They were Masons who believed that once they hit 33rd degree, they should be worshipped. There's a reason why George Washington has an obelisk. What does the obelisk represent? And who does it represent? Do some research. It's because of worship. This is why the Most High, when he talks to us, right, when we talked about the first time when he said to Moses, he says, hey, Moses, go back, and he didn't say and tell him just let my people go, period. First thing he said was, let my people go to worship. He said, let my people go to worship. Let them go 3 days journey. That's 60 miles away from anything. Let us be in a place where nobody can see us, nobody can get to us. The only thing that's going to happen is we're going to be influenced by the Most High out, and let them go there to worship. Right? Just 2 weeks. But Pharaoh knew it don't take but so long that if you learn how to worship the Most High or believe that somebody's more worthy of worship than he is, it's over. That's where this thing starts. Come on, somebody. That's where that starts. When you want to be worshipped. Or you don't know who you should worship. Everybody's trying to worship something. So you go to Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, coming out of Carolina's, comes up with this book in 1859, which if you look at it, it's pushed by the Linnaean Society, so the Linnaean doctrine. It's pushed by royalty, and it's pushed by geologists. And the name of the book, a lot of you only know it as The Origin of Species, but the actual name of the book is The Origin of Species by means of natural selection, or semicolon. That's what or means there, semicolon. So, or semicolon means whatever's on one side is what it means on the other. So if somebody's telling you it's the origin of species by means of natural selection, right? So that means we need to know what things, or how things originate. And Charles Darwin is trying to say, well, the origins of things, we got to look at natural selection, how nature selects for itself, okay? But what does that ultimately mean that we're trying to get to? What's the other part of his book that they don't teach you this? Written in 1859, look it up for yourself. Right before we go into the Civil War, right before you start seeing Jim Crow, right before you're going to start seeing the author of the Jungle Book, Rudyard Kipling, talking about manifest destiny, right? Writing that stuff for Theodore Roosevelt. It's called The Origin of Species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. I'm going to say that again. It's called The Origin of Species by means of natural selection, or the preservation. How do we preserve favored races in the struggle for life? That's why evolution was designed to be taught in the first place. And then right after that, right, he'll write a book in 1871 talking about breeding and talking about that the goal, right, that to not worry about things because of natural selection, natural breeding. This is why they don't like you breeding with one another. I want you to see where this comes from. They say because of natural breeding, the way that will naturally do things, the way that the human body is, right, that so-called white persons will breed with so-called white persons only and black persons with black persons only. And what will happen is that white persons will become so much greater than black persons, it will be like the difference between the black person and the it. That would be like the difference between the white person and the black person. That's what they taught. And then after that, Charles Darwin's cousin / brother-in-law comes on the scene and says, you know what? I like that. We're going to make something called eugenics, right? Galton. We're going to make something called eugenics. And we're going to take eugenics and we're going to use it to speed up the process. If we know this is going to happen already when things evolve, then we'll make it evolve. That's what happened. See, I'm not here. When I talk about the soul of the American Negro, I'm not trying to deny anybody else. I'm trying to tell you the soul, the psychology, right, is messed up. You can't talk about Exodus, especially for us now, and talk about the people of Exodus and talk about us now and talk about the people of Exodus back then and not realize that we're dealing with the psychology has to be messed up. You can't keep a whole bunch of people enslaved and they don't, right, without them saying, hey, part of it is okay. You can't have the person have, look, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Both sides got Stockholm Syndrome. Oh, look, come on. Both of y'all got Stockholm syndrome. The Bible tells you not to vote anyways. You got a king. What you voting for? When's the last time you seen in the Bible there was a vote to see who was the king? When's the last time you seen in the Bible there was a vote to see who was the pastor? When's the last time you seen in the Bible there was a vote to see who was the prophet? Matter of fact, when's the last time that you've seen in the United States Constitution there's something called democracy? I'm gonna say it again. When's the last time that you've seen in the Constitution? See, some of y'all ain't read it. Am I saying something? I might be saying something new to somebody today. When's the last time you read in the Constitution the word democracy? Why are you spending so much time on something that's not even constitutional? You said when they cast lots? Yeah, sure. That was persons who were working for Rome, right? Who were often people who were voting to see. I guess the disciples cast lots, but even when they did that, it wasn't Yah's will, right? They put a 12th in there, and that wasn't who Yah wanted. So even with that, right? So we've seen it, but it didn't work so well. Doesn't mean the person wasn't a nice fellow. It just didn't work so well, right? He could have gone on and do great things, but that's not the way the Most High said. Most High said, come to me, I'm going to tell you. So I'm here to tell you these things because we've had this thing so messed up. We don't realize the soul of the American Negro. Now, when I keep saying the American Negro, I keep saying we're not talking FBA, we're not talking ADOS, we're not talking African American, we're not talking that you got to be Trinidadian American, we're not talking about you got to be, please forgive me, is it Belizean? I don't know if it's Belizean. I know we got at least one, maybe two Belizeans up in here, so forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. Belizean, I'm not sure. Belizean American, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You got to be Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina American, Haitian American, Jamaican American. No, I'm talking about the American Negro. Now, somebody still isn't getting this, so let me help you. The Negro, let's deal with that part. Because somebody's still thinking, oh, you blah, blah. I'm talking about nationality. You can identify with a nation. I'm talking about nationality. Those of you who say you want to identify with this stuff, you got to know who you identify with. You got to know who you're about to raise. This is why all this nonsense that they feed us, man, it doesn't matter. Look, you're right. Race, which really is just a word for competition, a speed competition. But if you want to talk about the way that people talk about today, then you're right. Race shouldn't matter. White, black shouldn't matter. You're absolutely right. But we're not going to pretend it doesn't, because that's part of one of the things that the enemy uses. Because, by the way, the same way Willie Lynch was willing to use whatever he could to separate us as a people, the enemy is willing to use whatever he could use to separate us as a people. And I know it's not the only thing. That's why I said you got to pay attention. It's deeper. Because in Revelation, there's 7 heads to the serpent. There's 7 heads to the beast. And the heads, all right, that he used, they still have the same body. The same serpent is at the center of it. But the body, the same government, the same beast, but the heads have been Kemet enslaved. The Negro. Assyria enslaved. The Negro. Right? The Babylonian enslaved. The Negro. The Medes and the Persians enslaved the Negro. The Greeks enslaved the Negro. The Romans enslaved the Negro. And yes, Christians enslaved the Negro. They all were over. And by the way, the Kemetic person looked like the Negro. And if the Assyrian person, if you put them over in America today, you probably think they were Negro. And the Babylonian, if you put him in America today, you probably think he was Negro. Matter of fact, there's a great opportunity for you to just do something real quick. For those who are old enough, right, to remember a guy named Slick Rick. Slick Rick. You remember Slick? Had the eye patch, the gold chains. Uh-oh. See, once again, I don't know what y'all do, or whoever's coming on here, we're going to have a chat with TikTok. I might have to have somebody help me to put together some legal paperwork, because y'all keep allowing whoever this person is to come on here. We're going to find them eventually and come at you too, just to let you know. But they keep saying that I'm making sexual whatever on here. Either TikTok doing it and something weird that I'm doing is showing it, or somebody on here is coming and doing that. We're going to make sure that we come over and deal with you, right? because you do it every time it's around the same time too. So I got to start paying attention to these names. But yeah, we might have to take some legal action too because this is getting crazy, right? I'm not gonna let somebody put that on my name. How you doing? Yeah, China. Thanks for being part of the community, right? You say we indigenous, come right, and here's some sexual stuff. Well, yeah, well, I just said that some are indigenous. If you didn't catch it, sure, there's some. And even if some are not originally indigenous, there's many that mix. We talked about that plenty of times before, especially if you just go five favorite nations only, then you got to talk about and then where everybody spread to. You know, obviously, and if you want to talk about the percentage of persons who have Native American blood in them, they're considered just to be black. You know, we talking extreme, right? That being said, though, it doesn't mean that there's nobody else that exists either. I'm not one of those persons that's like, because there's Native American blood, it means that there were no African slave ships. You know, there's a in between, right? You know, and if you're one of those persons that's like, well, we're just going to erase the slave trade that we have evidence of, and people like, it always is amazing to me. People would be like, I would hear all these persons say, where are all the slave ships? And I'd be like, have you not been to Baltimore Harbor? Have you not been to Massachusetts? Some of y'all don't best, you know, maybe some of my people don't swim like that, you know, for reasons that are kind of about what we're talking about today. But you can go not too far off of the East Coast and see a bunch of stuff. Go to North Carolina. Have you not been to South Carolina? We getting ready to go on the 21st to the 24th. We're getting ready to go on this trip where we're going to go to the, I'm sorry, where we're going to Savannah, Georgia, where we're going to see the First African American Baptist Church. And we're going to go in there and we're going to look at all the stuff with the Hebrew writings and everything on there because you had Hebrew slave right. By the way, we have historical documentation that talks about persons coming from other countries that were Hebrew and were never slaves. And they were black, so-called black. He said, now all that's fake? Okay, that's interesting. Because Native Americans, so I'm Anakituoya, if you even know what that is, right? You probably would call it Cherokee, not necessarily, but matter of fact, Cherokee has its roots in Anakituoya. That being said, those people in Tennessee have documentation. You can go read books in Tennessee right now that they have written themselves, not others. Some even in their language that talk about the fact that the Anakituoya were persons who were here you know, and had mixed with persons who considered themselves to be Israelites before there was such thing as, you know, what we call today of the modern chattel slavery. Or you would go to Christopher Columbus, who talks about, and we know this to be a fact, wrote over a Hebrew interpreter talks about him and his son talk about this in their journals, how they had to bring a Hebrew interpreter to be able to speak dialect so that they can go ahead and talk to the persons who they met in Hispaniola, right? And when they talk to these persons, they tell them, oh yeah, we've been dealing with persons coming over from West Africa. And those persons from West Africa, they've been using guanine weapons, and the guanine weapons, and they believe this, and they believe that. And they didn't believe them. They enslaved them, though, took them back over. They studied it in Africa, they studied it in Spain, they studied it in the Vatican. And all of them said, yeah, they're telling the truth, to the point to where the metallurgy was about the same percentage. And they used weapons that were very similar to the ones that were used, you know, almost the same exact percentage to the ones that were used in Israel. I mean, the list goes on and on, but, you know, I'm making stuff up. You know, yeah, it's always interesting which parts. But like I said, all you know, there could be multiple things that are true. It doesn't have to be it's all black people were only from one place or whatever. You know, you can go ahead and say it's all fake, but you probably need to do some travel and just open some books, right? And your assumption is probably thinking that I don't identify at all with being Native American, which is far from the case. Which is far from the case. My guy, love you though. I hope you're actually being a warrior, just you know, not just doing stuff for questioning sake. He said, I'm not native, I'm not indigenous to America. You're not native, except for the original definition of a Native American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. What is my father's bloodline? Once again, it goes back to Anakituoya. My bloodline goes back to Wampanoag. It actually goes back to what people call Iroquois, or you know what we actually know as Haudenosaunee, right? My bloodline even goes. I have ties to Seminole, which obviously is not the original, but you know, many nations that came together, including some of the persons that were of my father's Cherokee stuff, who actually mixed over there. And then I married into Seminole through my wife, right? Actually, have been two things, Cherokee and Seminole in Oklahoma, and you know, I know my roots that go to Mexico. And you question it because you're either somebody who is supposedly Native American because you're one of those tribes, which is a bad word to use for this, right? Well, one of those tribes who either makes money because you're supposed to separate yourself from us, right, and say that we have no ties so that you can keep whatever land that you have, which is one of the things that we did. I don't know if you're a $5 Indian or you're a so-called black person that thinks that, hey, whatever it is, you have to be only this to be able to be considered to be Native American if you missed the boat. Either way, though, I know what this stuff is because even the people that you're trying to use their definitions of stuff to get this stuff together, they say that, hey, they would define me as Native American. So you got to make sure that you have your stuff together with whoever you're reading or whatever, whichever way you want to go. Either way, though, your 2-3 minutes is up. Right. Okay. Maybe not everybody is Native American. Watch this. This weird thing that everybody that's so-called black is the same. That's why I said it's the soul of the American Negro. I'm not talking to everybody today. So this might not be for you, or it might not be for others who say they are. I want to help somebody with something, right? Like this is not for them. There are some persons who you call Native American who came over on that Bering Strait. They're not Native American either. There's some person you call Native American that, yeah, they are African blood. There are some persons that you're calling Native American that are Native American. There are some persons that you're calling Native American that are not necessarily Native American, even if they look the same color. And by the way, if you're not living as a nation anyways, I mean, how Native American are you? If you're not going to catch up on what it is. That, right? Just like if you're going to say you Israel, if you're going to say that you're kingdom, whatever, that you don't live by the laws and the creeds, then how much are you anyways? That being said, what I'm trying to talk about today is the American Negro. See, we don't know who the Negro is. So even in saying all this stuff, I'm giving you history to talk about the focus of the Negro. Right? And as I said, I'm going to talk about this throughout the week. So I'm not tripping off of I'm not tripping off of all that other stuff. Get to what you record in Dakota. Okay, Dakota. Are you Lakota too? Probably. Nowadays, we probably the same. I don't think I'm Dakota. Well, hold up. No, I had to look at that. If so, it's a very small group, right? But the American Negro. So the word Negro, once again, just like the word white doesn't mean what we think it is, the word Negro doesn't mean what we think it does, because most persons think the word Negro just means black, where it means Negro, which means black. That you think it comes from Spain. Well, I don't know. Is that so? You might have to teach me some stuff. Remember me. I'm serious. I'm not just saying that for now. Maybe sometime we can talk because I've gotten persons to tell me that there's difference there. I thought it was the same at one point with somebody who's supposedly more learned than I. So you might, if you have information, I'm serious. If you can, if you can share it with me one day, maybe we can sit down, give me some better direction than that. So I'll kind of stay off that until I get more better direction because I really don't know. I'm confused about that. It's not really my people per se. So um, okay, my apologies. My apologies. Can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me now? You said it was frozen. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So the American Negro. All praises to the Most High. The American Negro. Now, first of all, who is the Negro? Where do we even get this term? Okay, now a person is saying it's buffering again. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I took it off of the other thing. It says that it's 4 bars and it's green, so for where I am, it's saying that you guys can see me. But once again, sometimes it says it's red and y'all can still hear me. I don't know. I'm back. Yes, no, baby. So if you can see me right now, put a 7 in the chat. If you can see me right now, can you put a 7 in the chat? That'll help me. Sister Shima. Shalom. How you doing, sis? Okay, you can. Thank you. All right, Tada. Thank y'all so much. Right? For the Zion, for the 7. All right. Sister Sherry, ¿cómo está mi hermana? Gracias por tu presencia siempre. May y'all be with you and your family always. How you doing, Living Word? If I didn't say so specifically earlier, I think I said hello, brother Rodney. How you doing, Yevan? Baran? I still don't know if it's Baron or Baran, whichever way you go by. Baron. How's everybody doing? So yeah. So the Negro, the word Negro, is not Spanish. Hold on one second. The word Negro is not Spanish. That's gonna sound really weird to some of you. The word Negro is not Spanish. Um, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, Elder Tamara. Are you talking about? Are you looking for which? Or hold on, which one are you talking about? Which word you said? You said does that mean white flower? I'm not sure which word I was saying at the time. If you can help me out, I kind of lost track, talking too much, right? But the word Negro is not a Spanish word. Everybody, that's crazy. No, no, no. I need you to recall something. When did Spain come into power? What you think of today that you call Spain, because it didn't exist until more recently in time. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Cool, thank you. All right. What did the word, right? When did Spain actually become a nation? See, you guys think that they've been around forever. No, no, no. When did Spain become a nation? Where you call Spain today, there you go. 1492, possibly we could say 1491, right? 1491, maybe 1492. It depends on how you want to look at it. They won their right to be independent in 1491 against the last great Moorish king, right? But officially, I believe they don't become independent until 1492. So however you want to look at that, 91 or 92, right? When they had won in 1491, that's why they asked Pope permission to go get slaves, Negro slaves in 1492. But you don't know who the Negro is. So when they went looking for Negro slaves and they brought a Hebrew interpreter, you don't know why. Why would you bring a Hebrew interpreter to go find Negro slaves? Hold up, right? I'm gonna ask the question again. If I'm looking for Negro slaves, and Negro just means black, right? So I'm just looking for black slaves. Why would I go all the way to 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 um, to Dominican Republic, Haiti, to find Negroes to enslave? They asked the Pope permission to go and get slaves before they left. See, now we got to reintroduce Columbus too, because a lot of us were mis taught about Columbus, and we still misrepresent him because for so long we lived with him as such a thing that we still is difficult to eject him out of that thought process, right? Um, they literally went. Hear me, beloved, right? No lie, no exaggeration. They literally went to the Pope. We it's documented, and they said before we leave, because the Pope got a blessing. So they said before we leave, Pope, we want to go. We're looking for Negro slaves, and the Pope says, sure, as long as you get me some. And they hired Christopher Columbus because he had been sailing with Africans. It's written. He had been sailing with Africans, and they had told him how to get to where Negroes were. Oh, we're gonna hit the Spanish Inquisition in a little bit, for sure. Right? It ties in. But I'm just asking. See, I just want to make sure. See, because we're talking about the soul this whole week. We're gonna be talking about the soul of the American Negro. I'm just giving you a heads up. If this is too much for you, come on Sunday, and then we'll get back into Exodus. The week after that. And so you might want to, you might want to wait till next week if this is gonna be a little too much. That's right. So they went to Christopher Columbus, and Christopher Columbus says, "Oh, I know how to get to the Negroes." And the Negroes, we're looking for them in something called the land of Asherah. Let's go to some scripture that they hid because they're trying to make sure that they don't want you to know who the Negro is. But they used the scripture when they went looking for the Negro slave. So you telling me the scripture mattered? This scripture mattered when you went looking for the Negro slave to enslave. He was that was what a Negro was. You knew what a Negro was then. But now, when somebody says that's what a Negro is today, you want to tell me I'm lying. Let's look at what they use. In your church, they'll tell you I'm a lie. It's okay. I want to show you what they use. If they used it, hey, that's what they used to find them. That's what they used to get the say so. That's what Christopher Columbus used to tell Queen Isabel he was going to find them. This is what we're about to read is what Queen Isabel and them told the Pope. A book that wasn't and still isn't excommunicated from their books because they still have 80 books in their book in the Roman Catholic Church. Let's go to Second Esdras, chapter 13. If you're not used to having heard that before, that's the number 2, ESDRAS, ESDRAS. If somebody can spell that in the chat for me, just to make sure that everybody sees that, I would greatly appreciate you. Second Esdras, and we're gonna go to chapter 13. Yes, we go into the Apocrypha. And if somebody could use it to find you, I don't know why you shouldn't use it to find you. Come on, you know I can't get too wrapped up. Ooh, that's a bar right there, though. If they can use it to find you, I don't know why you can't use it to find you. My greatness. How you doing, Brother Nico? Love you much, sir. Keep on pushing. Mm. Mm. If they can use this to find you, I don't know why we can't use it to find you. Second Esdras chapter 13. My greatness. Holy Spirit, have your way in this place. I almost kicked over my whole setup. How you doing, brother? I almost kicked over. Oh my greatness! If they can use that to find you, why is it that they telling us that we can't use it to find us? It's baffling. Well, we don't let them get away within this word, man. Second Esdras chapter 13. I want to make sure that we get this together too. Seriously. This. I'm not trying to do this just for whatever. I'm not trying to get this to just get giggles out of you. I'm serious. This is going to start. This stuff is right in front of us. We talking about the soul of the Negro this week. This is part 1. All right. This is part 1 within this series. We got a series within a series. I want to make sure that you get this in you. You hear what I'm saying? Second Esdras chapter 13. You there? If you can. If you can't, just listen in, take mental note, come back to it, whatever. Make sure you read this for yourself. I don't want you to think that we're making stuff up here. I believe we're going to start at verse 40, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a little while. Yeah, verse 40. Hold on. You know what? Let's... Holy Spirit, because I don't normally teach it like this. Hold on one second. Oh, my greatness. Okay, let's go to verse 37. Second Esdras chapter 13, verse 37. That's where we're going to start. We're going to read at least through verse 45, 46, but let's start at verse 37. Normally we start around verse 40, verse 41. Everybody got it? Second Esdras chapter 13. We're going to start at verse 37. This is what they use now to know where to find you, which also shows us that they knew who you were and they enslaved you anyways. And then they lied about saying that they were you. They said the Christian is now. You see where this stuff starts coming in? Now Israel doesn't matter as much. The Negro don't matter as much. The black folk don't matter as much. Right? Ham don't matter as much. They had to change it to Ham, right? Instead of it being Canaan. Ham don't matter as much. They're marked. They're this. Cain, Canaan. Cain was original Cain. That was them being black folk. Da, da, da. But if that was the case, we wouldn't even have survived the flood, right? See, you see what I'm saying? They change this stuff. Let them change if you don't know who you are. Shalom, Sister Quatasia. How you doing? Hanging in there prayerfully. All right. Who is them? Them or anybody who wants to lie about the word and wants to have Balaam doctrine that you're warned about in Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, which says that anybody who presents doctrine or word that is a stumbling block to Israel, we should make sure that we are aware of them. And anybody that has this in the very next verse, Revelation 2:15, to bow down to idols, we should be against them. And if you're anybody that wants to continue that, then we should make sure that we recognize you for being an enemy of the word of Yahweh. That's them. Right? I already said this is bigger than white and black. It's deeper than that. And if you're somebody who's already looking for anything you can say as to why I'm attacking that, right? You don't came to the wrong place today. Right? Welcome. Is it Virginia? I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, but welcome. All right? All right? We're going deeper. Right? Wickedness is a lot deeper than just your skin. And when you find that out, then you find out who's using your skin, right, is far worse. Or the persons who are teaching persons to use your skin against you are far worse than what you even think. Verse 37, it says, my son will rebuke the nations which have come for their wickedness with plagues that are like a storm. That sounds like Revelation, right? Revelation 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The vials start getting poured out. Okay, watch this. Like a storm, and will rebuke to their face. Now, if you don't get what I'm talking about too there in Revelation, that's also tied to Exodus, because we have to look at what's going on today as if it's happening in modern Kemet, as well as looking at it as modern Babylon, as well as looking at it as in the days of Noah. Right? Context is king. So these plagues are just like the plagues that happened in Kemet, just like the vows that would be released in Revelation. All right? Now watch this, verse 38. And will rebuke them to their face with their evil thoughts. So whatever their thoughts are that are evil, they will be rebuked to their face. You ever notice that when you rebuke the enemy, no matter who you're talking to, when you look the enemy in their face, they take that certain kind of way? Now, be careful, because some of y'all just be like yelling and fussing and cussing people out. Right? But when you rebuke the enemy, or I've noticed I can be preaching in front of 2,000 and find one person that'll just start, getting really irritated about stuff. And I'm not even, and or we be on here and persons will come on here just as they already have today. And they'll come on here talking about, oh, he did this. Some one person keeps coming on here over and over again saying that I'm saying or doing things sexual and things like that, because you can see they're vexed. You got to be careful when you're around certain folk. You might not even want to be around certain folk when you start telling the truth, because they'll start falling apart. There's persons whose whole lives, their bodies will start falling apart. You don't believe in this stuff, right, dude? This stuff is real. That persons will get messed up because they're around righteousness, right? And I will rebuke, the Son will rebuke them to their face when their evil thoughts and their torments with which they will be tormented. So they've tormented. They'll be tormented back. Watch this. Which are like a flame. He will destroy them without labor by the law, which is like fire. Wait a minute. So y'all always talking about fire. Fire is always Holy Spirit. The fire is always supposed to be hell, right? But why is it that nobody ever talks about fire being like the law? Everybody talks about fire. It shot up like fire in my bones. But does that include when it shot up like fire in your bones? Does that also include the times? So when it shot up like fire, is that talking about the law? Okay, we'll leave that alone for today. Let's keep on going. I know that's not our focus. Verse 39. Whereas you saw that he gathered to himself another multitude. That was peaceful. Okay, he gathered to himself. How you doing, culture? He gathered to himself another multitude that is peaceful. Okay, all right. Who is this multitude? Another multitude. So this is a specific multitude. This is a specific group, is it not? Any disagreement so far? We're being very specific. Who is the Negro? We're talking about this week fighting for the soul of the American Negro. Who is the Negro? What did they use to find the Negro? What's Christopher Columbus? Christopher Columbus, if you didn't get the memo already, he used these verses, these next 6 verses we're about to read. 7 verses, excuse me. He used them to literally say, this is This is what we're going to look for. That's historical fact. Historical fact. They said they were looking for the land of Ashra. I believe it's even in that movie 1492 with the guy who I only really remember him from two movies. He had a very distinct nose. He played Christopher Columbus in 1492. I know he's in a bunch of movies, but I can only remember two of them. He's in 1492, and he also was played in I think it's in not the Three Musketeers, but in the Iron Mask. He played was Porthos the one? Whichever one was the one that was always wild and had all the women. He played that one. That's the only two I really remember him from. Right, but if you go find that movie 1492, he plays Christopher Columbus. They say it in there. This is not something that's just nobody's ever heard of before. This is like common knowledge. We just don't have this brought before us. That's right. So watch this. It says, whereas you saw he gathered to himself another multitude that was peaceful. This is a peaceful multitude. A peaceful multitude. Okay, what's going to happen? These are the 10 nations that were led away out of their own land at the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, sorry, I'm saying it wrong, the king of the Assyrians, led away captive, and he carried them beyond the river, and they were taken into another land. Now, that's not the part that we settled on. But this is telling you now, if you don't get it, so it really isn't even 10, right? But it's considered to be 10. It's really more like 9.5, meaning this. So Israel is really supposed to be one. Technically, it's 14 nations. There were 15 children, one of which was a girl. 14 nations after that, 12 of the original sons. Two got drafted and adopted in by Israel because of what happened to Joseph, right? But we really still have this kind of focus on the 12, okay? 12 of the nations are all together. 10, so you have 12 of the nations all together. All of a sudden, Judah is put as far as being king, correct? We're in 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, at verse 40 right now. So you have 12. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so you had the 12. You had 12, and let's say all 12 are together, right? We're all one nation. We're all Israel. And is it Wagan Biak? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for being part of the community. Then they're separated. Then they end up having Judah is the king, but they're also one nation. Judah is David's lineage coming out of Judah. All of a sudden, Solomon started messing up. After Solomon is messed up and hanging up stuff like that happened, there's a huge explosion. 11 nations leave. Right? 11 nations leave. So there's only one nation, which is Judah. We consider that today. We call it the Southern Kingdom. And then there's 11 nations. We call that the Northern Kingdom. They changed up a lot of stuff, and they do things differently where they are. They still are dealing with wickedness and things, and so the Most High still has to deal with them. They end up coming out. So you have Judah, one nation, and you have all the other 11 nations. Eventually, over time, I'm trying to say the wrong person. Like a wolf, youngest one. Benjamin, they come back down to Judah. So when you hear somebody say Judah, Benjamin is in the kingdom of Judah, but basically Judah is still is technically two nations. Judah is Judah and Benjamin. And then what's happened also too over time is they've messed over with the Levites. The Levites are not supposed to work in the field, but the Levites have left with everybody else. The Levites are like, okay, we're still supposed to be Levites, right? And they say, well, no, we don't really care about y'all like that. Y'all find what you can. And so the Levites, some of them work in, a lot of, half of them or so. So you know what, let's come back down. So technically it's 9.5. That's why I say 9.5 instead of 10. But anyways, we look at it as 10 nations and 2, even though technically the 2 nations that are one is the nation of Judah, is technically Judah, Benjamin, and some of the Levites, right? So anyways, this upper nation now deals with something and they end up having to be taken out of their nation, right? This upper nation now has to be taken out of their nation, right? So the northern kingdom is taken away by the Assyrians. This is why everybody else from that point on who lives up there, who's either partially Israel or somebody else and they doing some weird stuff or whatever up there. That's where you get this term Samaritan from, right? These Samaritans, they're the ones that are up there, the ones that are called dogs. So the Samaritans are not really all the way Israel or one of the nations, or some of them may or may not be, but for the most part, most of them are considered to be mixed with other nations, other cultures, other belief systems. So the Northern Kingdom never really truly coming back to what it's supposed to be after that, right? Now, all that's happening here in Esdras, it says that these 10, they were led away, they were taken away from their nation. That was verse 40, to another land. Verse 41, but they made this plan among themselves. Okay? These who were in the upper nation, verse 41, they made this plan among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go into a more distant region where mankind had never lived. So they made a pact amongst themselves. And they said, hey, when we get free this time, we're not going back home. That's what they did. They said, when we get free this time, we are not going back to northern Israel, to the northern kingdom. They said, we're going to go looking for a land where nobody's ever lived before. That's what their intent was, to go and find a place that nobody had ever lived. All right, verse 43. Now watch this. That they might keep their statutes, which they had not kept in their own land. Now, this doesn't mean that they kept it where they went either, but that was the goal. They said, hey, we've been in our land. Every time we go back there, we keep getting messed up or messing up. We keep getting captured. We keep doing all this foolishness. Let's go somewhere where we can have another chance, and we're not influenced by the same stuff, and we don't have to worry about getting conquered. And we can actually go somewhere peacefully, and we can worship the way we're supposed to worship. They're still looking to do what? To worship. Don't forget how huge that is in this series. They're still looking to do what? To worship. All right, verse 43. They entered by the narrow passages of the river Euphrates. Now remember what Euphrates even means. See, we just came out of Revelation. Oh, hold up. Let me get some water in me real quick. That didn't feel so great. Hold on. Okay. Well, I say to worship, right? So they went looking for to worship. That's where they went. They went looking for a place to do what? To worship. Yes, sir. I see you. Right? So they went to keep their own statutes that they had not kept in their own land. They entered by the narrow passages of the river Euphrates. Well, if you don't know who or what, I mean, just stick around long enough. I mean, we pretty much kind of already talked about that. And that's what we stand for. I mean, if you want to stick around long enough, feel free. And so they entered by the narrow passages of the river Euphrates. Now remember, Euphrates, even in Revelation, represents what? And not just only in Revelation, but we saw that we had to go back and we had to look in the so-called Old Testament, right? And it showed us that in Scripture, right, I believe, right, that basically the king had to make a declaration and throw, right, a declaration of wickedness that would be against our enemies. It would be thrown into the water. Right? It would be thrown into the water. And in that water, that would be an indication as far as that's the extent of how far the enemies can come against us. Anything that they try to do against us will come out. And then later in Revelation, we see out of that water, out of Euphrates. So it says, even when it's talking about Euphrates, it's saying they're going past what's supposed to be where we have said is cursed or whatever. They're looking to not deal with those things within that boundary. Right? Those of you who know Revelation, and went through the Revelation series with us, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, you can feel free to go back there. The last probably 4 or 5 different recordings we have of that series in our playlist, you could pick that up. Right? Now watch this. For the Most High then did signs for them and stopped the springs of the river until they had passed over. For through that country there was a long way to go, namely a year and a half. And the same region is called, now some of your versions say like Arzaf or Zayef, or some will say Asharat, some will say Asheraf, right? Basically, they're all talking about the same place, a different dialect. And it said that they went on a journey that took them a year and a half. So this is not them just going from one side of Israel to another. This is not just them going, okay, we're going to go from Israel to Russia. All right? It says that they went on a journey for a year and a half. For a year and a half. For how long? For a year and a half. Okay. So this is not a small journey, was it? How you doing, Sharon? Shalom to everybody. This is not a small journey. This is not a, oh yeah, let's just do this. No. They moved a whole 10 nations together, feeding everybody, clothing everybody, protecting everybody. And they went on look, by the way. They didn't know exactly where they were going to find it. They just went looking for a nation. Now, what if I were to tell you some interesting things that start happening around this time? Like what if I were to tell you that, do you know that in Russia, out of nowhere, for about 400 years, in Eastern, what we now today would call Eastern Russia, there's like a 400-year history just out the blue around this time that everybody was what they now want to tell you was Jewish, and then it just disappeared. Right? Isn't that interesting that some people leave? And by the way, if we keep going the same route, we find that we get some interesting things in Canada, where Native Americans start talking about that they came in contact with some persons and they kind of started living by certain standards, and they started doing certain things with certain weapons and started kind of sounding the same. And there's certain things that dialect-wise seem to make sense, and that there's, even in America, there's certain names, as I've said before, like if you're Choctaw, your original name breaks down to the people of the skirts. If you're Cherokee, your original name breaks down to the people of Yah. There's some of you who have stuff that actually in your origins used to mean I worship Yah. We already said what happened with Christopher Columbus, where they went looking, and they brought a Hebrew interpreter. Why would you bring a Hebrew interpreter to the New World? First of all, I want y'all to get that out your head. Those of you who once again, this has been taught for so long. When I'm saying the New World, I'm saying it in jest mostly, or just to make sure you can catch what I'm saying too. There's no such thing as the New World. Persons knew about this. Don't forget when Thanksgiving, that whole Thanksgiving happened, Squanto, his name is Tisquantum, his actual name is Tisquantum, but the one you know is Squanto, he didn't just magically speak English as you were taught in school because God wanted to bless the pilgrims. No, he was a former slave. He had been to Spain and he had been to England, and he wanted to help them to enslave others, hoping he might be able to get a piece of the pie. We know this. Like this is, just because somebody told you something to school, like we actually can read this stuff for ourselves. We know this to be the case. I'm sorry, this is Michelle. How you doing? I missed you coming on. Right? We know this to be the case. So, we know that Chinese persons were coming over to the Americas before Christopher Columbus, right? We know that they were probably here before we started seeing them come over in droves and working on railroads. They were probably already here, right? We know the Russians were coming over the Bering Strait, dealing with Native Americans already. We know, y'all know about Leif Erikson, Eric the Red Son. Leif Erikson came over with his people. We're not sure how much into the United States he made it, but we know for sure he was going to Canada and all that stuff. On the East Coast, they couldn't find anything of value, so they left. We know that persons in Kemet, we know that pharaohs in Kemet had 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 stuff that only grows. Right? They had like nicotine and things that only grow in the United States, or sorry, in well, yeah, I mean most of the United States, but let's just say in North America, South America, they had stuff like that that they found inside of their bodies. They were eating and they had stuff that is native to the Americas. How you got stuff native to the Americas, and you over in Kendall? We know, right? So this whole thing that you have in your mind, like we know, if you were to go the biggest pyramid in the United States, or sorry, the biggest pyramid, at least I don't know, and let's just say in North America to be safe, the biggest pyramid in North America is close to Chi-Town. It's in Illinois. The most pyramids concentrated on the planet are in the southeast region of the United States. This whole thing that we have, that like Christopher Columbus was looking for a new world, that's a lie told to you to make it okay, the things that they were doing to the people for the doctrine of discovery to exist. This whole thing of they were looking for India. Do you not know that they had something called the East India Trading Company? And they came after the Dutch, what I think this is the Dutch India Trading Company. How you gonna have the, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Pirates of the Caribbean is dealing with the East Indian Trading Company. If you know that movie, when the guy who ends up dying in that famous thing in Part 3, where the ship starts exploding and all that stuff, and he's on there, you know, and he says it was just good business and all that. The one who the pirates went against and all that. Hey, bruh, that's who that is. You're telling me that we know that those cats exist, but somehow, some way, we didn't know that the new world exists. And I know it's a few hundred years difference. But if you look at it and you know what these companies exist and you do the timeline stuff, it's impossible for them to start throwing this stuff at you like, oh, nobody knew, right? Nobody had nobody had any thought process in this, but they want us to be once again the soul of the Negro, the soul of the American Negro. Who is the Negro? Well, they know who they're looking for. They went looking for persons who are there. They went looking. They said the land of Asherah because the land of Asherah was supposed to be where you lived. That's what they said. They were looking for Negro slaves. Christopher Columbus said, "I got you." And by the way, before somebody says, "Well, Negro means black," you're still no Negro means black. Well, then why wouldn't you go to Africa for a Negro? Why wasn't your first stop Africa? I'll help you out because they were already enslaving Negroes from the 1300s in Portugal and in Spain. By the 1500s, you weren't even allowed to call them Negroes anymore. They started just calling you Africans. This is stuff you can read for yourself. This is not difficult for us. See, once we know who we are, you can't tell me no lies no more. And the Spanish Inquisition was against the Negro. Oh, that's nice that you got it on there. The Spanish Inquisition was against the Negro. Period. On period, poo. Right? It was against you. The first ones to be affected, sure, there were persons of other colors, but the first ones to be affected, they did it against you. Because Negroes were considered to be a word that many of you like to use this instead of Yechavada or Yechada or Yehuda. They called them Yehudie. They spoke a different dialect because they were in Spain, they were in Portugal, they had Latin ties to their word, their language now. They called themselves Yehudie, or what a lot of you call Yehudi. The Yehudi. That's where you get that from. It's actually Yehudie because it's IE, it's Spanish. It's Portuguese, right? Yehudie. How you doing, Sister Joy? So they had Yehudie, but that was you, Yehavada. Yehuda, Judah, and you wouldn't do business with them, and you wouldn't give them money, and they did not like it. They did the same thing to you, in essence, that they did to another group that y'all are more familiar with and you'll give more credit to, even though, they have less historical evidence of them than they do of us. But you ever heard of a group called the Knights Templar? The Knights Templar, same thing. Knights Templar, not giving money to the French king. French king wants some. They won't give it to him. They never really give anybody anything. They fight, for Christ and him only or whatever until they come up with a whole thing. Well, they're all devil worshippers, blah, blah. They're able to use that to go ahead and try to strip them of everything that they have. And persons believe that one with nowhere close to as much historical evidence of that than they do of us. It's kind of like what Flavor Josephus said when he was writing about this, when he wrote back during the 1st century AC. He made the point to say, hey, it's interesting that you guys will believe everything I say about everybody else's culture and keep it as if it's law, but you will not believe what I have to say about my own people. Flavor Josephus also was a Negro, an Israelite, Yehuda, Judah. This isn't a new thing. In the 1300s to the 1550s, we flourished in places like Spain and Portugal. And they described what you looked like. They said that you had skin that was considered to be swarthy. They said that you had locks, not just hair, not just long hair. They said that you had locks, not Goldilocks. They said that you had locks. They said that you were swarthy. They said that you were strong. They said that you were highly into women. What does that even mean? See, we got to talk about context. What does that mean back then? Why would you say somebody's highly into women? They said you had a high libido for women. Well, that's because the Spanish and the Portuguese, amongst other Europeans, it was okay for you to be able to DL, just take care of your wife and children, but you can go ahead and get your DL fixed. But we didn't do that. We didn't have no relationship with men like that, so that wasn't part of our culture. If that's part of yours, that's fine, but we don't have anything to do with that. They didn't like that, too, because, if you weren't just laying down, don't forget, you don't get a Cesare Borgia, right, who they look up to as Christ, and who they always have looking very feminine. Why is they always looking very feminine? Well, because the one that painted him, Michelangelo was somebody who was having relationships with Cesare Borgia. He drew his boyfriend, and y'all sitting up there worshiping Christ, not realizing that that's somebody's boy toy. That's why he looks like that. That's why his eyes, when you look at that, he looks soft. I'm not trying to say that our Messiah can't be masculine and be softer in certain ways, but I'm telling you, there's a reason why his hips are always hanging out. There's a reason why he's thin and stuff like that, and he's thin, because that's the way he looked at it. That's the way it was. Who off his own brother, having relations with his own sister, whose father was the Pope, and changed the way that the Messiah looked so that his son could be worshipped. And they would later on use that so that you would look up to that version of Christ rather than what Christ was in the first place. That's right. It's in churches and living rooms and all over the place. And many persons grew up, no matter what your color was, you grew up, you better have your Cesare Borgia up on that wall somewhere. He said Hebrew and Greek would have been spoken by Muslims in the India political court in Portuguese. I mean, yes, as within quite a few other languages. I'm not sure what it has to say with the American Negro today, but I might have missed you, I guess. Hello, is it Anthony? All right, I'm not sure. We're talking about the American Negro today. But, well, not in your house, that's great. Many houses they were. All right, many houses there were. All right. Even some of the strongest houses they were in there, right? Well, I'm just saying, many houses. It was a thing. Look, good times, when they had that thing up there, before Michael even said anything about what was on that wall, everybody already kind of knew that was going to be a part of discussion, or at least even didn't even see it. It was probably invisible to many because of what was in your house. And if it wasn't in your house, it was in your boy's house, your girl's house, whatever. You was used to see it. It was his grandmama's house, it was somebody's house. Right? And like I said, no matter what color. Right? They didn't take it out of the Russian house until what's his face got in there. The dictator got in there, Stalin, and then he said, "Take that down and put my picture up." And then when they needed to win in World War II against the Germans, what did he do? He said, "Take my picture down and put back up Cesare Borgia. Let's win this battle because y'all like him. And then as soon as we win this battle, let's put me back up again." Hmm. That's how powerful that display was. The false image of the beast, or the false image is lifted up for you to worship the beast. That's Revelation, right? So now, so you had this, but this is all same time. The Borgias, right? The House of Borgia, the changing of color, the iconoclastism. We don't talk about, like, this is all time work and frame. And so, but they say, but this is what they said about the Negro, which, by the way, the word Negro once again is not a Spanish word because Spain didn't become a country in the 1400s. The reason I threw that in there real quick, if you didn't catch it, is because technically Spain was fighting against who? The Moors. So the Moors were the ones that were in charge of Spain. But somebody says, well, Spain was around. There was a place called Spain, but Spain was around. From Romans and the Greeks, for sure. Do you not recognize though that the Romans, right? Watch this. The Romans fought who to even get control of Spain? Who did Rome have to defeat? And we know this because the person they defeated had to move their capital to Spain. They had to defeat somebody called the Carthaginians, Africans. They had to defeat the Africans, the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians. Hear me, beloved. They had to defeat the Carthaginians. They had to defeat them. And the Carthaginians, before they were defeated, actually moved their capital up to Spain, what you call Spain today, which means that it was an African territory. So African that that when they were like, we need to move the capital somewhere for a hot second, it's getting a little hot. They said, we'll move it to Spain. And the term Negro existed before that. Matter of fact, if you do some research, you'll discover there's probably one of the most ancient West African, maybe Northwest African words that actually exists. So when they saw Negroes, right? When they saw Negroes, you'll discover that they were talking about a group of people. And if you know Carthaginians are mixed with food things, including Israelite blood, and use the same characters. Well, up until the time, they use the same characters that we use. That's why when person say, no, you can't use that type of characters. That's Phoenician. Yeah, the Phoenicians are the ones who came up with the alphabet off of the alphabet. The person who did it was part Phoenician and part Israelite. And he did it for the Greeks for money to help them to have something closer to what we use. And he helped them have characters when they were trying to come together and have their own nation after they would basically defeating the Persians. And when they started making new ways to bring all their gods and everything together, they wanted the whole language and the whole writing to make sure that everybody was doing the same thing. They used somebody who used the alphabet or the alphabet. It's our language, our culture, our stuff. That's why you call it. It's not just the phonetic alphabet; it's the phonetic alphabet, because we're talking about the way, not just the writing, but the way that we do things to make sure the characters are sounded out. Now, the Phoenicians get credit for it, but that's something that goes back to us. He was using something that belongs to you. See, the psychology of the American Negro. We just see when we speak about this stuff, certain things they feel like they come back. So when you're talking about there is no alphabet before there's the alphabet, or what people call now with the modern Hebrew the alphabet, right? The Alephet. All they did was take the same thing we were using and they flipped it a little bit, called it the alphabet. Alphabet or the alphabet is literally just us taking the first two characters of what we use and saying all 22 characters are based off of these first two. For our first two, what they mean is Father, Son, or Father, the source of all, who comes out of the right family, or who's one with the Son, who comes out of the right family. That's what all of our words are based off of. The 22 characters based off of those two. All 22 characters we speak, and every word, therefore, we put together is the word. That's why in the beginning was the word, and the word was Yah, and the word was right by the shot in the beginning. And we're using the same two characters to say that everything that we speak comes out of that. What did they call it when it was flipped to the Greek? Alphabet. Why? Because alpha is the first character, bet is the second character. That's your culture. You don't call it the AB, but that's what they're saying. When they say alphabet, they're saying it's the AB. You call it the ABCs. Really, it's the ABs. If you were to take the letter A and put it on the side, and take a lowercase b or even an uppercase b and put it on their side, right? Either way, because it's just a different style of writing, you would discover that they're basically the beginning. Those versions. So the letter A like this, right? If you can see the letter A, right? Instead of having it like that, flip it to that. That's its origin. That's Aleph, or what we call today Aleph. All right? In Aleph, that triangle represents the head. The line that goes across represents the ears. And these two lines that stick up, these are actually horns. It represents the Father, it represents the ox, it represents strength, it represents source, it represents cultivation. All you do now is when you see that, you don't even think about it like that, right? So you see that and you think this, but if you flip it like that, that's its origin. The second character behind it, right? It's easier for me to do the lowercase version, so I'm gonna just do lowercase version. Second one, the letter B, put it on the side. That's its origin. This is a line that leads up to a circle, right? The circle is the house. The line is basically the ground. It means son, it also means family, it also means house. Those two characters together, we call it Aleph Bait or Aleph Bet, right? You call it today AB, or what you think is called alphabet, or right, you say ABCs because you were taught to make it rhyme, but it's actually your alphabet is just the first two characters. The Greeks had somebody who was of our culture basically give them something that is exactly the same. At least for their culture. Their characters don't mean the same things as ours do. Right? This all was something that we had before there was, so we had this before Greece. If we had it before Greece, we had it before Rome. Do you not recognize that's one of the reasons why Romans came in and not only defeated the Carthaginians, but they salted it. They salted the ground the Carthaginians were on. You know how wild that is? They wanted to make sure nothing grew. Julius Caesar and his wife had nightmares about it. It was like, yo, we did them dirty. And he went and told them to take the salt and stuff out and try to get stuff to grow back there again. They got rid of any connection to you being you. And persons will say that I'm out of my mind. But I'm not telling you anything you cannot look up. This is the wild part. I'm not saying anything that cannot look up. I'm just giving you, look, I'm showing you, here, put it together. Lock it together. Here's the timeline. This stuff is right after the other one. Boom, 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 boom. Christopher Columbus, right, is going to look for people that are Negroes. He doesn't go looking in Africa. Now, why would he not go looking in Africa? Because they have Negroes that are swarthy, that have locks, that are into the law. By the way, it said that they follow Torah. This is in Spain and in Portugal. Right? It says they wore hoodies. He said that they would have hoodies on, that they would play, that they would put poetry over music. It said they would have hoodies on and put poetry over music on street corners. You can't even make this up. I'm not talking about what we would like to say. I'm talking about what's written. Books are written on it. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to. Could I even make that up? Hey, yo, back in the day, the same way the brother be out there and he'd be freestyling, or, the same way, back in the day, we used to have four brothers be out there on the street corner, we'd be singing songs and stuff, and we'd be hoodies and everything, and we all had the same belief system, and we was trying to make sure we were getting them girls and blah blah whatever. Like Cash was doing back in Spain and in Portugal. In the 1300s to the 1550s, they finally got tired of the fact that we wouldn't, because we were supposed to marry within our belief system. We were supposed to marry within our nation. We were supposed to get money within our nation first, all the time. So because we weren't giving them the same stuff that they wanted to get rich off us, and we wouldn't do it. All of a sudden, here comes the Spanish, what we now call today the Spanish Inquisition. Oh, they got pictures, yeah, large of Portugal. Here comes the Spanish Inquisition. It affected many places. It's just called the Spanish Inquisition. And by the way, what did they wear during the Spanish Inquisition? We talking about the soul of the American Negro. It's gonna be tough this week, but it's gonna be righteous. Just stay with me. It's gonna be tough, but we gotta feel. What did they wear when they started torturing the Negro? Oh yeah, we need an exodus. We need to realize it's time to be in Goshen. When the Exodus came, we were separate. We were in Goshen. We were being obedient. We had the land ready. We weren't going into. You couldn't even go to Kemet anymore because it was so messed up. It was dark one day. It was raining fire. It was raining hail. It was raining fire and hail at the same time. Right? We need to start coming to Goshen. It's time to separate. Time to be on that Revelation 12 piece. But guess what they wore? They wore the same thing that the KKK wore in the late 1800s, and still to this day. The white hoodies. That wasn't new. See, we had our hoodies when we was on the street. They had their hoodies when they was coming after us too, and they came after us on horses back then too. They had to bring horses over to the New World. They had horses back then too that they was riding. And they had those. They still wear them today, by the way. Oh yeah. See, somebody lied to you and told you, oh no, the Birth of a Nation, the original Birth of a Nation movie, we did the watch party in, and oh yeah, he's happened to see some children playing outside, and the black children were chasing the white children, and the white children all of a sudden put sheets over themselves, and they looked like ghosts, and the black children ran away. The black children were scared of ghosts, and he was like, I know, we'll look like ghosts. There's people that still believe that foolishness. No. This wasn't a new thing. See what I'm saying? It's the same spirit operating. You're acting like it's a different adversary. It's a different devil. It's the same spirit. It's coming against the same people because we're supposed to be the people who are supposed to be free to worship. And our freedom to worship allows those who would like to come into the worship to be separated from the world, and they must deny anything that looks like freedom and freedom of worship. Look, you might be in the wrong thing. I've said this before. I pray that it be not my time anytime soon. I believe I'm going to be fine. I believe I'm going to be protected. That being said, I'm not into this thing realizing that there may not be a day, it may not be a day soon, to where the world come and try to snatch me up because, hey, you know what, you did this or blah, blah, or they make it illegal to preach the truth. They're making it illegal to teach certain things already. They're making it illegal to hire certain people already. It ain't that far. You see, we say for y'all live and for y'all die. It could happen. This is why, like, this is why I had this thing in me where even if, look, I might be pushing myself too hard here or there or whatever. I'm telling you, I'm seeing stuff. I was talking to somebody the other day. We were having a conversation. They were like, man, I wish like we had really been, as a group, like, I won't say who it was, but somebody was like, man, we were talking about this like 5-6 years ago. Like in 2020, I remember heavy, like 2019, 2020, you were telling persons back then, you were saying, hey, be careful, you doing all this stuff, talking all this stuff, whatever. Like, you talking about voting, blah, blah, they're not going to do this, they're going to show you real easy, your vote don't matter, blah, blah, we should have been prepared. And a whole bunch of us, like, nobody really did, we didn't really move, blah, blah. And I'm not trying to say, look at me, I'm trying to say this because the person brought it to my attention, and I was like, yeah. And to me, I wasn't even thinking twice about it because I was just like, yeah, we know this. But the reality is we keep holding on to this stuff. Like, oh, one day Pharaoh gonna get it together. One day Pharaoh's gonna actually let us, be able to make bricks withdraw again, and when he does that, that'll be better than what it was. Hey, even though we're free, why? I'd rather go back and be a slave because at least I knew what type of food I was going, or maybe, I might not have known what food I was having, but all I have is manna all the day. Then you satisfied, you fed, you're free. Can't even go into Canaan. You got to go 40 years, but y'all has to remove more and more and more off of us because we're so busy trying to be disobedient because we can't just go into what he said is ours. He said, send some spies. The spies are supposed to tell us what to do to win, and they came back telling us what we could to lose. He's knocking some of that stuff off of us still to this day. At some point, we got to realize, man, like, look, and I pray, I hope I'm not, well, I won't speak nothing for myself. I'm just saying, like, at some point, hear this word well, and pass this on generationally. Your modern Kemet is not here to satisfy you. It's not here to quench your thirst. It's not here to make sure that you can build stuff, houses that you can live in. Right? This is what it told. The word in Jeremiah 29, way before verse 11, it tells us that we should already be even in the land of our captivity. We should build houses we live in. We build. There are persons who have jobs where you built several houses for others and don't have a house that you live in. There's persons to where you have fed several families and still try to figure out sometimes how you're going to eat tomorrow. At some point, Holy Spirit, have your way. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Yeah. So these Negroes, they end up enslaving them during the Spanish Inquisition. They dressed like KKK. Before the KKK, that's how they dressed. That's where the KKK got it from. And they have all this. They have all this stuff there, and they're doing all types of torture, and they're forcing Israelites, Yehudi, Judah, they're forcing these Negroes to either A, die, B, watch their wives and children die, or just watch their children die, or C, basically choose on their own, which nobody's really going to do, but they make them choose to become, at the time, Roman Catholic. There's no such thing as Protestantism yet. At least not to how we think of Protestantism today. So they're making them choose to be Roman Catholic, to be in the church, or die, or watch their children be sold into slavery. Then after many of the men decide to go ahead and become Roman Catholic, then they basically ship them away to the West Indies. Now we start seeing the Caribbean come and take place. Right? Now, where's Christopher Columbus going to go? Looking for Negroes? Okay. But everybody like, we don't know. No. So they shipped them over there, the same place where Christopher Columbus went looking for Negroes. All right. They didn't go to Africa first. Portugal kind of was doing some stuff in Africa, but not really. And when they did, we'll talk about that in a second. But they basically send them there, and they start sending the women there next, right? They have children, right, that they got to deal with now. So if you are a child, let's say 2 years old, maybe 3 years old, you get to stay with maybe your older sibling to a certain point, to where you can be okay enough to take care of being a slave of a child, a Portuguese or a Spanish child, right? And then all the children, once they get to be like 12 years old, they start getting shipped in bread. If you were really, really obedient slave, you could stay. Always with the threat of your family probably being taken from you. This is Roman Catholicism at work. This is Christianity at work. This is where the one that they want to tell you now is a lie, a myth. And this is where Willie Lynch lives. The one that they say the worst The worst slave owner of all time goes and starts teaching all the other slave owners how to make sure that he makes slaves that will exist with the fear of not being acceptable enough to white persons. This is done to the Negro. And just in case, sorry, I made a claim about Portugal. Let me make sure I keep my word. So when we talk about the Portuguese, what did I say I was going to say? Portuguese. I did say I was going to say talk about that in a second. Oh, with Africa, right? If you do some research, keep on reading, you'll discover that in history, that there was a difference between the Negro and the African as far as the slave. Once again, so-called white persons, so-called white slave owners did not believe that the African and the Negro were considered to be the same. They were two different groups. Matter of fact, somebody can verify this for you, right? Those of you who went with us, you said you cried when you saw what the equipment was. Yeah. Those of you who went with us to the, and I didn't even get into that. We didn't even get into the triangle. We didn't get into the stuff they stuck up people. We didn't get into the letting people slowly but surely letting their weight bring them down on stuff. I'm trying to be righteous. Okay. But that being said, I try to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. It's righteous to tell the truth. I'm gonna be nice today. You still got it the rest of the week. I'm telling you, y'all got a chance. You don't have to stay on here the next few days. It's gonna be rough, but it's gonna be righteous. All right, watch this. Watch this. If you look at something as simple in Africa as this, well, first of all, I'm sorry. I'm going so many different places. Let me slow down. All right. Excuse me. Slow down. Okay. If you look, so those of us who went to the Noah's Ark replica in Kentucky, they had all these different things that they tried to put in there. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense, whatever. I tried to talk us through some of that stuff when they were saying different things. I need you to see, if you recall, there was a big wall where they had supposedly the history of mankind. And if you recall, in all the history of mankind, according to them, not one person was black. That was the joke that I made. I was like, you guys notice anybody missing? Everybody be like, missing? And I finally be like, hey, no black people in history. But that wasn't true. Somebody pointed it out. They had one black person in two ways of describing it. They had one picture of one black person on there. It said on there, it was really, head that's kind of small. It was like a huge thing that went really, really far. And then there's one little small thing, speck, and it said, like in some words off to the side, it said, could be considered to be Negro, or also could represent the African. Which means today, persons still understand when you go certain places, including in the United States of America, that there's somebody considered to be a Negro, but just because you're Negro doesn't mean you're automatically a what? An African. Now, I'm not saying we look down upon you because you're African, nor should the African look down upon you because you're Negro. I'm just trying to tell you that the persons who have come up with these terms we're using, and we don't even know which ones should and shouldn't apply to us, they will tell you out their mouth that yes, we know there's a difference between the Negro and the African. They are the ones who actually started putting laws together that black folk or anybody who looked Negro or had Negroid features would stop calling themselves Negro, to the point that they allowed you to slash people in their mouth if they called themselves Negro. It became outlawed for Israelites to call themselves Negroes in the 1550s. By 1555, it would be really tough to find a black person who would ever call himself a Negro, at least out loud again, because to call themselves that would mean that you would have to actually admit to being Israel, to being Yehudi, right? In Portugal, by the way, you can still go see the ghettos that they lived in. Not so sure about Spain. But in Portugal, the ghettos that they lived in are still up. Yes, hundreds of years before Hitler. And hundreds of years before you started saying you were in ghettos, which actually is not as off-putting as what you thought. I remember I used to teach, we shouldn't say that we live in ghettos. I used to hear people say that. We shouldn't teach, we live in ghettos, we're not even Jewish. The first ghettos were for us. Okay, you said they're still up. Thank you. They're still up. So you can still go see them and look at them. That's where your people were. They had you in ghettos hundreds of years ago, 1500s. People keep talking about, man, slavery been over for hundreds of years, but they really mean 1865, and that's not even true. But that being said, still, your people been in at least ghettos that were places for caged animals. You don't put gates around just anywhere. Now gated communities, they try to make that nice for so-called white persons, but gated communities for us is usually ghettos. And no matter if it's a house or an apartment type complex thing or whatever, or a high rise, you know a ghetto when you see one, because you always looking for who? I ain't even trying to hold you. No shade, and I mean this seriously. No shade to my human Ashkenazi like brothers in humanity. Seriously. Ashkenazi Khazar, I don't mean any shade in this. What was done to you was wrong. Straight up. Okay? I need you to understand. That was wrong. Right? I'm making that clear. That being said, go to Europe and tell somebody you're looking for ghettos. In a whole bunch of places in Europe, they be looking for you. Tell me I'm lying. Go to England right now and say, I want to go to the hood. I want to go to the ghetto. They ain't trying to tell you where the Jewish person live. I'm just, see, we don't comprehend. Our psychology has been so messed up concerning ourselves, we don't even see it. And it's that in front of our face. It's flagrant. It is flagrantly obvious. Is that interwoven into the fabric of society that we don't even see? In all of the vicissitudes of life, we allow those things to be, so autonomous in our viewership that literally has been so interwoven into even the molecules that fly through the air. It blinds us from being able to see this right in front of our face. Go to a Portuguese place right now. Go to Portugal right now. Say, I want to go to a ghetto. They're not going to go take you where a Jewish person live. Go to the United States of America. Go to Chi-Town. Hey, I want to go to a ghetto. They're not going to take you where Jewish persons live. Go to Brazil. Say, I want to go to the ghetto. First of all, they probably wouldn't take you. And secondly, they're not. Right? And secondly, you're not. You hear what I'm saying? Go to Chile. So you want to go to the ghetto. Where do you think you're going? Go to Dallas, Fort Worth. Go to H-Town. Hey man, I'm trying to go to the ghetto. Where do you think they taking you? You think they're taking you where the Cowboys play? No, we know who this is. We know what time we on. Right? Now I say that because I want to help you. With this, right? I'm saying that, now watch this. The Negro is so well known that even through the 1700s, and some would even argue maybe through the 1800s, 1900s, but at least through the 1700s, right? Through the 18th century, through the 1700s, we know for a fact, all praises. In the 1700s, we know for a fact, and have it on wax. Once again, you can look this up at the Library of Congress or even on their website. You can look it up for yourself. There's a map of Africa in which there is a place called Negro Land. How you doing, Sister Erica? And thank y'all for the love and the reposts, likes, all that good stuff. There's a place called Negro Land on the map. There's Guinea and then Negro Land. And when you go look at Negro Land in Guinea, which by the way, if you don't know, is a huge chunk of basically West Africa into Central Africa, you'll discover that all them places, or there's a whole bunch of places, I can't say all them places, that's bad, excuse me. A whole bunch of places on that map that will say things like, this is the lost house of Israel. This is the kingdom of Judah. This is thus and such, thus and such. They all have Israelite. This is where Benjamin is. This is where blah blah. This is in the 1700s, 18th century. Because what happens is they went looking for Negroes where they thought Negroes were. They sent Negroes where they thought Negroes were from to become slaves for them. Then after that, they start looking for more slaves. So they go into Africa looking not for Africans, they go into Africa looking for Negroes. And they find where the Negroes are. Once they start kind of getting rid of most of the Negroes, or they can't find some of the Negroes, or they can't go through some of the stuff that causes them to get malaria and stuff, because some of the Negroes have things like sickle cell and other things that they've actually had that they developed or just had that allowed them to be able to go ahead and be in places that others can't be. Well, then they start focusing their attention on trying to get persons with what's called Negroid features. Cool. You've been on this whole time, and that's all you've heard today. And by the way, you've been on before, and you've been bothered before, but that's okay. Watch this. You could go and find so many different recordings of me talking about so many different things. But because today I'm focusing on something that's heavy, sure. And if you're somebody that says the focus is salvation, let me ask you this, and moderators, please, if not, because the moderators actually run this. Right? You said Africa still has slavery to this day, for sure. America still has slavery to this day. Does that mean that salvation is happening in America better? There's still a sex slave trade right now, and you have a president sitting on the throne, right? Are you guys making sure that you honor him, and that you honor, you still pray for him? America does not have slavery. If somebody's in debt, what is that called? If somebody has to pay a debt to society, what are they treated as? What are they allowed to be treated as by the 13th Amendment? See, before you come on, see, moderators, if you don't mind, and I'm gonna be doing some of this week. Moderators, if y'all don't mind, we're gonna be doing a lot of this week because we're gonna be heavy-handed. I told you this series is gonna be heavy-handed. We already got persons coming on here lying and saying I'm saying stuff sexually. So somebody trying to come on here. So let's do it real quick. You ready? What do you? No, no. What do you call it? What does the 13th Amendment allow you to treat somebody as once they're arrested? You don't know, do you? Just like I said earlier, you guys think that you're in a democracy. But the problem is that you can't be in a democracy constitutionally if there's no such word as democracy in your constitution. Stop it. You come here to talk about the wrong thing in the wrong place. By the way, let me ask you this, if you're still on, because you haven't answered. So maybe you're trying to look up what you need to next to try and dismiss what I'm saying. But I'm on point. I'm already here. So when you catch up, if you decide to, or when you come back, when you decide to, let's deal with this. You want to talk about salvation. See, once again, this is when people get ignorant, because when we talk about the Exodus, we got an Exodus from the system that has you thinking that some of this stuff is true, and it's not. You ready? You ready? Salvation. Is there a prayer of salvation? I'm gonna give you. I got somebody flying over here. I need some more water. Anyways, and I plan on being on a few minutes later. You know, not, I can't go as long as sometimes I can normally go, but I got time for it today because it's something I'm already ready for. Holy Spirit already prepared for some of us. No. First of all, I'm not. We're not talking about that. It's weird. We're talking about my opinion. I asked you a fact. I said, according to the 13th Amendment, is slavery allowed? See, now you're being disingenuous and you're not answering questions and you're lying, sir, or you found what I'm saying is true and you don't want to answer. What does the 13th Amendment allow you to treat somebody like when they're arrested? And is the term democracy in your Constitution? And if somebody's in debt, what do you call that person? When they pay a debt back to society, what do you call that? Repent, that don't mean nothing to me. You're a fool. The reverencing Yah is the beginning of all wisdom. And you don't even believe enough to reverence him in his word and what he says. So you can take that somewhere else. I rebuke that. That's foolishness. Now, if you would like to actually be on a conversation, then feel free to be in the conversation. But you cannot do it, can you? All you can do is give ad hominem, which, by the way, is terrible apologetics. Whether they be Christian apologetics or not, you need to get your level up. You're not ready for this. Now, watch this. I knew you weren't ready for it because that's all you got. Right? That's all you got. You ain't got nothing else. So watch this. You can still stay on, but watch this. I got you. You ain't got nothing else. Right now, I can't get as worked up as I normally would, but you ain't got nothing else for me. So watch this. You're already out of pocket. You don't even know what you're talking about. But I'm prepared for this week. It's going to be rough for you. Right? So here's the deal. While you're so busy talking about this, that, or whatever, I asked you about salvation, and you couldn't give me that. Yeah, whatever. You don't mean anything. So you couldn't even give me something about salvation. I asked you about the prayer of salvation. Is that real? You didn't answer. You know why you didn't answer? Right? You know why you didn't answer? You didn't answer because the prayer of salvation is a lie. You want to talk about the lies I'm spewing. Now, should we talk about the prayer of salvation and get rid of that? Do you attack people who say that the prayer of salvation is real? Do you make sure that you tell them that? Or do you get mad at me because I say, hey, we should tell the truth about racism as much as we should tell the truth about the prayer of salvation? You'll be quiet about not telling people about the truth about the prayer of salvation and telling me about salvation. By the way, salvation has to do with what? Salvation has to do with works. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And to be saved and to have salvation are not even the same thing. For Romans 10:9 said, if you confess, which means in the Greek homologia to have the same logic. So if you have the same logic as the Messiah, and you believe that Elohim is raising from the dead, the Messiah is your Lord, and you shall be raised from the dead, just as he can be, for your fellow heir. But then Romans 10:10 tells us, to confess with your mouth leads us unto salvation. And to believe in your heart leads us unto, down the path, unto righteousness. That word righteousness means to be in right lawful standing. And here I am asking you a simple question about salvation back, and you cannot do it. But you probably would defend that person who's telling a lie that's just as vicious about salvation and what it has to do with work, even though Revelation 14:13 tells you that your works follow you even into heaven. Even though Revelation 20 verses 11 through 15 says that if you say you have faith and works, well, they go together. But if you say you have faith in something, but we can't find any evidence that your works show that you believe in what you say you do, then we shouldn't even make sure. You will defend that joker, but you will not make sure you defend somebody saying that we should be racist. I'm saying we should not be racist, that we should not come down on the people, no matter who it is, but especially if it be the chosen people of Yah, who all are supposed to be grafted into and become a nation, not just only a color, but a nationality. And you can't see it because of colorism, because you're more on the Willie Lynch stuff. That's the only reason I'm giving you time today, because you represent that. You're arguing against somebody who said that what you're saying is true, but you're so busy being like, no, it can't be true. I don't like the way you're saying it because you're saying that black person should get respect. Yeah, I am. Not just because they're black, but they shouldn't be treated disgustingly because they're black either. And we shouldn't try to use Christian nationality and undertones of it to go ahead and say that it's okay to dismiss it. And if you want to go ahead and argue against the word, then go ahead and go with the adversary. Go ahead and go with the Satan, because you sound satanic. That's what you sound like, man. This is what you straight up sound like. Sound satanic. Oh, he's talking too much about this. All he does is talk about race. Well, if you want to say that, that's a heck of a statement to say, and you probably have not looked through any recordings of videos that I make at least once a day. You know, I have an average of at least once a day for years upon years in many different platforms. That's definitely not the case. But that being said, I don't shy away from race either, and I don't shy away from no demons or who supports demonic activity. And you can't answer my question. It's all gravy. You can't answer my question. Why do you defend the person who's against? Watch this. Fine. You defend the person who lies about salvation. Okay. Why do you defend the person that lies about the name of the Most High? Right? Why you defend the person that's still saying God and God is the demanded thing to say that you can worship whatever you want? I'm sitting up here saying Elohim. Why don't you defend my right to make sure that I say his proper title? It's because you ignorant, you don't know, and you defend wickedness. But this is what this is for. It's not just for him. It's not just for him. It's for all these persons. How you doing, D? A lot of persons need to hear the truth. They need to recognize and need to hear it be said for the first time. And yeah, it's going to be jostling to you. Well, I see you, but it's not even off track. Like I said, Holy Spirit showed me this week. It's going to be tough for a lot of persons to hear this today. And it's going to be a lot of times throughout this week where you're going to get this probably usually towards the end, so I can make sure I make it through, because we're going to have some heavy lifting. And by the way, persons who think this is just the entry, just to make sure everybody understands after the day, right? Or if they listen to the recording, whatever, right? Tomorrow, part two. we got we got to we got to get through. Today's Monday. We got to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday kind of have a landing point, so that on Sunday we can start talking about Pentecost, right? But it's gonna be tough. No, because ecclesia isn't even original. First of all, the term ecclesia or even church are not of origin. You know what I'm saying? Right? You know, church actually comes from the word cirque, it's a circus. And ecclesia is not an original word that they use either. Right now, if we're talking about an assembly, we're just talking about specifically assembly and talking about ecclesia in that way, because ecclesia can be used in different ways. A lot of us only know about, one or two concordances. And we kind of leave it at that. And those concordances aren't always going back to the original Greek that was used. It's going back to what students were putting in, and that what the teachers, Strongs, put in the book, right? But that being said, if we're talking about Quadeshem and assembly, because that's where they're getting the term from, they're trying to use a Greek term to get you to the Hebrew term, Quadeshem. So if we're getting to that, well, then that's an assembly that's the nation of Israel. That's who you're talking about. Not trying to come at you, per se, by the way. Sorry. Probably came across that way. But yeah, that's and those words are not original anyway. We're wrestling out against. See, here's the thing that's going to make it difficult for many persons. On here, see, I'm not wrestling against flesh and blood. What I'm hunting for is any unoriginal spirit. That's what that word means, right? It's what it's saying. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. That word principalities talking about an original thing. Thank you for that. Right? It's we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against original, the origins. That's what we wrestle against, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. See, when you figure out who the Negro is, see, we said this week gonna be about the, or today. So we talked about today well, we're gonna really be talking about this whole week. We're gonna be talking about this American Negro, but today we talk about the soul. So we started to. We haven't even really gotten into the psychology. At some point, we're going to talk about the restoration. It's going to be difficult because, yeah, these terms we've been taught. This is one of the things that the enemy does. This is why English language is even considered to be like a spell, right? Is you've been taught to use things out of order and out of place so much that you even use it for yourself and don't even recognize what you're saying. Right? We don't even recognize the causality and duality of different things, and even don't comprehend that there's positive and negative things to what we say, even if we're saying the same thing. We recognize, right? Death and life is in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. Well, guess what that means? That means that you got to act upon it, those that love it. And there's things that need to die in our community, and there's things that need to live, including some things that must be resuscitated. You hear what I'm saying? Some things need to be resuscitated. Some things, this is what it's, watch this. We talk about this a lot at SOC, so some of you already know exactly where I'm going, right? But this is why, excuse me, this is why there's something called membership and remembering. Remembrance. Remembering does not mean that, I recall it. Remembering means it was actually dismembered. I can't remember what was never dismembered. Yeah, thank you, Elder Tamara. I'm done with him. He had to go look up stuff to be able to find something. He still ain't find nothing working. Right? You can come back tomorrow. You better come better. Right? You better come better and more correct, or else you're gonna get embarrassed tomorrow. Just being honest with you, straight up. Right? I wasn't. That, and by the way, that wasn't debate. I gave you a chance to debate. I just spoke at you. I debate with persons who are on my level, or I debate with persons who at least have respect. You have neither. So that wasn't a debate. Just to let you know. And call me big headed, call me whatever. That's exactly what it was. You were not ready for what you got into, but you did open the door into something else. So I thank you, right? But dismember. See, if you were part of a membership of something, you had to be dismembered. How you doing, Missy Tina Turner? If you were part of membership of something, then and you were dismembered, then you can be remembered. What has happened is that we have been dismembered from so much of ourselves that even watch this. This is something I have to do quite often. Even when I start talking about us, I have to always qualify by making sure that I go to somebody who's not even of us to make sure that I tell you what they say about us, and then persons will start going, he makes sense. Right? And I'm not trying to be that to be mean, do that to be mean. I'm telling you what it is. I understand. Malcolm had to do that. Martin had to do that. There's a reason why these jokers, even if they didn't want you in suits, got suited up. Because they understood if you don't see yourself as clean in somebody else first, you won't even think of yourself as clean. How you doing, Hitter? Right? There's a reason why. Like you gotta look at somebody else's beauty and then say it's okay if they're beautiful. Blah, blah. Why can't you be beautiful? You can't just say, "Hey, man, sister girl, beautiful." And these are real problems. It doesn't mean that we're trying to do white versus black or black versus white or what. No, this is reality that we have to fight against to get back. If you want us to come into true remembrance of who we are, then you should want it. Because once we come into true remembrance of who we are, we won't even have to think twice about who's beautiful and who's not. Because we'll just think of ourselves as beautiful. I'm trying to end. I'm feeling okay. Somebody watch me. I know I'm over time. I planned on going no longer than like 15 minutes over. Right? So I promise I'm all right. I'm hydrated. I've been paying attention to my stuff. I got my chair. So if anything's necessary, but we're fine. But I just want to make sure I got to obey. Holy Spirit's really pushing me in this, and I know I only got a little bit more time, so I'm just letting somebody know because letting y'all know because I know somebody gonna get on me soon. All right, but I need you to comprehend. That's the problem is I don't even think persons, and I don't even like this term equal because equal means there's no two people that are equal. But I'm gonna use the term that everybody's used to. Okay. Thank you. I see you. When we talk about equality, the thing that you should want is for us to come back into remembrance ourselves. Because once we come back into remembrance of ourselves, we'll think that when we both show up, we're both equally beautiful. When we show up, man, your culture could be beautiful and my culture could be beautiful. Your culture can have some things whack about it, but I still respect it. My culture, you might think there's some things whack about it, but you'll still respect it. The problem is that you guys don't want us to actually equally love ourselves. I'm not asking for somebody to say bow down and kiss my feet. There are some of us that teach that stuff. That's nonsense. We don't teach that here. There's some persons. If I'm not gonna mention no names, but to keep it a buck, there's been plenty of persons with us present and with us before that would love to see Pastor Kofi. There's some person that would have stuck around if Pastor Kofi was like, yeah, all them white people, blah blah this and that. They would have loved. They would have loved it. That's not what we teach here. But at the same time, persons don't have they're not mad at me because I'm saying, oh yeah, we're over everybody else. Persons get mad at me because I start saying we should be treated like you should be treated. It's wild. Persons will get on here and come on here, man, you guys are still teaching that mythical stuff? Do you do that when they teach Greek mythology? Why don't you do that to them? Do you do that when they start saying Merry Christmas to each other? Why don't you do that to them when they walk around with Santa Claus stuff? Do you stop every single person that's in bunny rabbit ears during Easter and tell them the same thing? Why you always do it with us? I know why. Revelation 2:14. Thank you, baby. By the arm doctrine. I know why. It's there, and I know who I am, and so I've accepted. Like this 11:11. I've accepted who I am and whose I am, and I've accepted what comes with it. I have. I've accepted what comes with it. I'm 6'5" and a half, Negro, who will look somebody in the face and say, "I don't need to go by you at all. You're not my standard." And that makes me public enemy number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thanks, babe. I see it. You hear what I'm saying? That's the only reason, is because it's automatically assumed that because of the way I look, they know what I believe. And by the way, I don't know if there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I live like if I had the same, watch this, if I had the same setup I had on today and had a buzz cut, you know, clean shaven face, maybe a little bit of shadow or whatever, had on some glasses, and was speaking in a manner in which when somebody said something, I said, "Okay, Michael, officer, I don't want to make rock the boat and blah blah." I would get so much more traction. And the person who came on, they would listen to it and be like, "Oh, this and that." But he sees, even though he's supposedly supposed to be one, like me, he see, and you can never tell nowadays because people be coming on here with all types of stuff, having to have them their, what do you call it, their avatar look different than that. You said no one cares if you have ears to hear, right? Well, no one cares if you have ears to hear. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Cupcakes, to be fair. And we're saying nobody should care about what you look like, or blah blah, this and that. If that's the case, then I mean, sure. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean. I don't want to go into certain things because it's kind of that shut the builder thing. It's like, yeah, sure, ignore somebody, blah blah, this and that, get that or whatever. But that being said, also too, so here's the thing that I've been charged to do. I don't know if this makes sense, but we're pretty much finished. I gotta close down. I gotta shut down after this because I don't want to be disobedient to the point to where I have issues later. I'm still getting my health back together, so I'm gonna be obedient. We had a nice run today, so I'm gonna leave on a nice run. That being said, um, here's what I'm called to do. I'm called to be separate from the world while at the same time extend the bridge over to those who are still the remnant that's left, who would like to come from the world into here, right? So what that means for me, as we get ready to take our leave, right? What that means is that I have to be able to talk to those that are in darkness, show up as light, give a word that's light, and allow persons to make a decision to leave darkness and come into light. So I can't. So as much as it's like, oh yeah, you could just, like, that's absolutely right. I could go and try to live on a place. Like I've thought about it before. You know, it probably would take me a year, 2 years if I really was diligent. I probably in 2 years could leave. Persons have asked me before. You give me 2-3 years max, like 3 years. I think for sure I'd be able to go to another country and live somewhere and probably never have to worry about paying a bill for my family again. And if I preach, I just preach from over there and I say, hey man, I tried my best. Y'all don't want to listen, right? I could do that. It's not what I'm called to do that. It's easier. Like I'm serious. Like because you could buy land for cheaper. Like I could go back to Ghana. We could buy land for cheaper. I could buy it out in the country somewhere. It'd be cheaper because it's out of the country somewhere. I've seen how they build their home. Their homes are lavish now, right? I could make sure, I'd invest in somebody get one of their vehicles and things like that over there. So I could get something that's totally separate. I don't really have to move it so much. Wife could have space to be able to do home if she wanted to too. I'm just saying in my mind, we'd have to agree on this. But I'm just saying she could have place to be able to grow all the food she wanted, or do whatever she wants to do with herbs. Solomon could be over there, learn a whole bunch more about his culture than he gets to have now. Like I'd love to be able to do something like that, but that's not what I'm called to do. And if I did, I'd be leaving my responsibility, right? And there is purpose. So it's like, yeah, so I could, I wish I could just be on here. Matter of fact, I tell persons this all the time. I wish I had it in me, right? There's something that drives me to do this. I think persons think that we just want to do this. Maybe some persons just want to be heard. I really am driven. Like, there's a lot of days I don't want to necessarily, or there's a lot of times that I know, okay, this is going to be tough, you know? So it's like, yeah, but the goal should be for us, even here, the goal, even biblically, is for us to come together. We keep forgetting that part. The goal should be at some point we're going to come together as a people. And when you wake up, you're going to wake up and you're going to see your sister and your brother that you left and your right. As they come out of their house, you'll be coming out of yours, right? And your children and your children's children will be marrying into each other, right? And they'll be believing the same thing. And by the way, that's how nations work. That's how nations work. Speak the same language. Guess what? That's how nations work. You said right now over me. Hey, what's up? What is that? Can I get away with playing that? Would somebody be hyper offended? I don't know. Would somebody be hyper offended or not? What is that? Who's that? Michael Jackson, right? Can I get away? Y'all gonna get mad at me if I did that in the shout out. That's an old school man. I haven't listened to that song probably like 5, 10 years. That's been a long time since I've even heard that. It's been a long time since I heard that. But they used to come together. I was like, oh, I had to remember. I remember these. Right, but no, but seriously, yeah. But that's what it is. We would come together. We'd have one language. Okay, thank you, babe. I'm done. I'll finish up. Thank you. Right, we'll have one nation. We'll have one tongue. We'll look the same. We'll dress the same. And I'm not even saying look the same as far as colorism. I'm talking about like look the same. You'll present yourself the same. You'll have the same hair or same hairstyles. You respect people for their differences, but also love the similarities that you have. Like that's how you build nations up, right? There's supposed to be. You hear what I'm saying? You're supposed to be able to look at somebody and be like, okay, I promise, babe, seriously. I'm trying to figure, I'll be trying to figure out how to say a lot in a little bit, and I never succeed. I'm gonna try to be straight to the point. um, Put it like this. Last thing I'm gonna say. Last few sentences. All right. If you see a woman with red hair, right, with and I'm not trying to be, I'm just trying to give a picture, okay? You see a woman with red hair, and you see a four-leaf clover in her hand, and you see her wearing a green dress. You would probably assume she's what? And that's what we do in nation building, right? You would assume she's Irish, right? Okay, if you see a little girl, some of y'all know about this, some of y'all don't, right? Depending on your experiences. But if you see a little girl and you're at the no, you play in the arcade at the laundromat. You see a little girl running around. You a child, she younger than you. Seems like her and her family just got out of church service. She got her dress on and everything. She's up there, you're just running around, skating, playing all the games with her sister, her brother's suited up and booted, whatever. Before I even say the rest of it, you probably already thinking they what? Come on, right, right. Um, okay. If you see, it's not even that difficult, right? If you see somebody and you see a whole group of people that are eating together, and they're all, they can't wait to eat. Suspenders are being shown. People are loving and laughing and stuff like that. You see spaghetti, you see sauce, you see oil, you see really nice plates, you see all types of this, that, whatever. What do you think to yourself? Come on, you think Italian, right? Okay, so there should be nothing wrong. Persons try to make us feel and believe that there's something wrong with them saying to where, hey, we should get to a point where we have culture and things, and to where we look at each other and you say, hey, I see fringes, or I see locks, or I see, I see tunics. I see, whatever, so much stuff. I see these things, and I say, oh yeah, that makes them look like. Why is that wrong for the Negro, but nobody else? We'll get into that tomorrow. I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna be obedient. I could keep going and going, but we're gonna end healthy. Right, I can feel I'm probably getting a little to the edge. So we done well today. Thank you all for listening in. Once again, if there are those that are interested in coming to Savannah, we'll try to hold, we'd rather get take the send on the size of the group, two and a half more. If you want to work some stuff out, with us as far as financially now or on the end of it or whatever, let us know. For those that are coming, for sure, we're gonna make it work. No matter what we got to do, there is a little extra we got to do, and in future stuff, just let it be known. Like, that's why I was saying before, if we say we're going to do something, and I'm like, all right, we're not going to do it because we can't, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, no, we're going to do it, and then I know stuff happens. I've been somebody where stuff happens before, so I'm not going to pretend. That being said, kind of puts us in a little rough place, but we're going to trust y'all. That being said, we look forward to seeing you guys. You guys should get a text message uh, to the group, for a reminder of what's going to happen on what days, and you should get the address. If you'd like to be able to have conversation once again about possibly coming, also for Pentecost, I know Sister Mignon is supposed to call you later. Uh, um, Pentecost, those that are coming for sure, we will try to put together a group, even for the babies and everything. We'll try to put together a text room for you guys as well, so you guys can hear and see most of the stuff that's going on. We've already put out information as far as places you guys can get as far as hotels. We put out the date for the most part. We're going to probably show up with the family and be ready to do, if we do some kind of meetup, maybe on the 29th somewhere. We're having our actual event on the 30th, but we'll probably try to fellowship with Pastor Hamilton and then a little bit on the 31st after the live session. So sorry. Thank you for that. Pentecost. No, not Pentecost. This week, 21st to the 24th, for the Memorial Day meetup in Savannah, Georgia. So 21st to the 24th. The 21st, for those of you, just to let you know the schedule, just in case you're like, oh, well, I can't do Thursday. The 21st is basically we're asking as many people as can come in early that evening, so we can know how many of you are coming in. We'll make sure that we feed you that evening. The 22nd, which is Friday, we're going to make sure that we go out into the city. We got a couple nice spots historically that we're going to see our history and stuff together. The 23rd, which is a Saturday, we're going to, and the 22nd, we'll do our live session together and everything as well. The 23rd, which is Saturday, we'll do our live session, do all the stuff we normally do. Then we're going to go to the church for to see, our history in the church and written upon everything inside there and see how they built it. And then we'll kind of have a free day on that day for the rest of the day. The 24th will be that Sunday, which basically, we'll have to check out. So, you can show up, do a live session real quick, and then we'll, kind of go our own way. If you staying, if you're doing whatever at that point, feel free to. And obviously Monday, it's Memorial Day for everybody. I'll be on live, but we'll be finished at that point, and hopefully everybody will either be on the way back or back home safely. For Pentecost, the week following, that'll be on Saturday, May the 30th. The week following, that'll be on Saturday, May the 30th. That'll be in Detroit. Okay, so we'll have different information for all that stuff popping up. If you're interested in it, please, ma'am, please, sir, whatever platform you're on, try to either look in the description with the videos that we put out, or look in our link tree to try and contact us. If you can stay on for the shout out at the end, we'll have information in ways you can try to contact us. Okay. Also, too, don't forget that in this season we're getting ready to go into Pentecost. So Pentecost is ways that we do things, certain things that happen. So starting this Saturday on the live sessions, we are going to start teaching on. Starting on Sunday. Excuse me. We're going to start teaching on Pentecost, get everybody ready, talking about the proportion, all that stuff as well. And also too, once again, there is a family that's in need, as well as just stuff that we need to get done throughout the season. It's a lot of travel and stuff like that. So, at least through the end of this month. So if you're able to roll with us, rock with us, help us at all with some of that stuff coming up, we would greatly appreciate it. We look forward to being able to help you guys out. There's been a lot of stuff that's kind of happened with us and stuff, so we try to make it work as best we can. We know what we signed up for. That being said, If you can help, we know that you can. We really appreciate it. And if nothing else, seriously, if nothing else, we truly believe in this. At least touch and agree with us in prayer. All right, and be sincere. Seriously, but sincerely. If you can, send something great. If not, touch and agree with us in prayer. Let's touch and agree as much as we can. It's not just about only SOC stuff, even families and stuff that we do provide. This is always an interesting season and stuff, and we're not doing as much travel, believe it or not, as we actually usually do. But just because of some of the crazy stuff that's happening, we trust y'all, but we also know that we come together as community. So, and if there's anything that you guys need, even this season, even if we don't have as much, please feel free to let us know, because it doesn't mean that we cannot ever do anything for you. But let us be together in prayer about that, right? Oh man, I'm gonna give you guys. Okay, last thing, and then we're gonna shout out. Now, this is not a point. It's something I was supposed to say, but Holy Spirit said it can wait till tomorrow because we didn't even get to that part in the series yet. So there's a word that I want you guys to learn. It's not a Hebrew word. It's actually a Zimbabwean, right? Zimbabwean word. We're gonna focus on this word tomorrow. Okay. If you're on TikTok, you already can see it. I'm gonna spell it out for everybody else. All right. We're gonna start here tomorrow. The Zimbabwean word. All right. PAMBEPFUMI. I'll spell it again. I'm gonna spell it two more times. PAM, like Pam, BEP, BEP, FUMI, Fumi. PAMBEPFUMI. Pambifumi. All right. We're gonna start on that word tomorrow. All right. Homework assignment. If you want to find out what it means, all that great stuff, cool. But that's a homework assignment for tomorrow. Okay? All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you so much. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life to say, able to be honored, to the ministerial staff, moderators, SOC, Lottie Dottie, everybody. We appreciate you so much. We hope that you guys have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, thank you in advance for what you're able to help us with in this time. And we hope that you guys are doing well. Thank you for the prayers for my family and I. Thank you for the prayers for our health. And thank you for hanging in there again with us one more again. So we're going to have a special selection, a special request for today. And we're going to go ahead and have our shout out. We thank you again. We hope that you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you guys soon. And until next time, remember as always, beloved, that you are loved. You're necessary. You're majestic. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. All right. Shalom. Take care. And talk to you soon. Peace.